It's the biggest game of the season. That means it's the biggest show of the season. Deniz Selman, Zack Berman, Fran Duffy, myself, all here. Coming up next on the PHLY Eagles podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the PHLY Eagles podcast on a Wednesday afternoon. A full deck that we have here in studio ahead of the big game tomorrow night between the Eagles and the Commanders, the biggest game of the season to date. And to talk about it all, we have from your right to left, my left to right, Zack Berman, our Eagles insider, Deniz Selman, who is lighting the internet on fire with why you should always go for it on fourth down. Fran Duffy, the man, the myth, the legend, and myself, who the only thing I bring to the table for this episode is an occasional Josh Harris face. How's everybody doing?
Better now that I've seen the Josh Harris face in the opening minute of the show.
Deniz, you have been waiting, biding the time for you to finally have to be on the show with Fran. I know that you cannot contain your excitement.
It's awesome. We got to do it once before the season.
August, yeah.
Yeah, but this is the first time that we have actual film to discuss and a game to discuss. It's great. Every time Fran is on, I make sure that I have my film notes out and I'm checking. I'm like proofreading basically to see if I caught everything, to see what else I can learn from what he's saying. And so it'll be great to be able to say the things live that I'm saying by myself in a room when I'm listening.
Okay, well, we have a lot to get to. We're going to preview this matchup from both sides of the ball, maybe some other important things to think about and know about this matchup. And then, of course, we will end with Swooper. This is going to be a long show. Buckle in, is my guess. But we got to start. Zack Berman, Nick Sirianni spoke today. What is the latest from the NovaCare complex?
Yeah, Nick is not saying much about Jordan Mailata's status, and I spoke to Jordan Mailata yesterday, and he's not saying much about his status either. That said, if you just read the tea leaves, Jordan's going to play. And I say that because we spoke about the Eagles' decision on Monday to open the window during a week when they only have walkthroughs. They don't have practices. So it's not as if there's like an acclimation process for him. Walkthroughs by nature are game plan specific. So if you're opening it, the window for him to do walkthroughs, he's involved in the game plan. That's number one. Probably more then these next two things are more telling. He would have been a full participant in practice the past 2 days had there been practice. So that shows you that health-wise, he's where he needs to be in terms of practicing fully. And then probably the most telling one of all was the Eagles' decision to waive Jack Stoll, thus opening a roster spot. You wouldn't open a roster spot the week of a Thursday game to sign someone off the street. You wouldn't do it to elevate someone or to sign someone off the practice squad unless that player, of course, was out of elevations. You would do it to bring someone on IR to the 53. That person obviously is Jordan Mailata. Now, Jordan said that the training staff has like this daily checklist for him to get ready for Thursday, that he needs to shake the rust off. But it certainly sounds like he's going to play elsewhere.
Saw him playing ping pong in the locker room yesterday. It feels like he's ready to go.
Yeah, and behind the scenes, just conversations. This was kind of the week that had been targeted. Now when I asked him that specifically, he didn't want to say this was the target. He said whether it's this week or next week against the Rams.
That was the one thing that had me concerned was he mentioned next week against the Rams multiple times.
Yeah, I think he was doing that more
because he was told not to
for the gamesmanship. Right. Exactly.
Deniz, were you surprised it was Stoll?
I was a little surprised because it seemed like Stoll had some value. I know Fran talks a lot about how Stoll's a better blocker than Calcaterra is, and Just because Goedert, I know he's not like the best in the league at it or anything, but I was a little surprised. I mean, I think they'd want to continue to dress 3 tight ends. I know Stoll still has 2 elevations, so if he comes back on the practice squad, he can be elevated twice. But it does show you that Stoll might not be like a long-term. They might not think that it's that important if it's Stoll or EJ Jenkins or whoever else they end up
they use Bo's because
EJ Jenkins is out of elevations, by the way.
Yes,
so,
Bo's really good at the roster gymnastics, and the league has already shown what they've thought about Jack Stoll. Right, he's cleared waivers before. Now there is more film during the past 10 weeks of him, but he was available for everyone to sign this offseason. He was available for everyone to sign when the Giants cut him. The Eagles brought him to the practice squad. He was available to sign when he was on the Eagles practice squad. If you were to cut Eli Ricks or Tristan McCollum, you don't know if that guy would clear waivers. Now, they could cut Nick Gates, which we've talked about, but
I think McCollum, they're probably safe to do it if they need to, but
he might be the next one up.
Do you guys think it'll be Driscoll dressed and Gates inactive tomorrow? Because Fred Johnson will be the swing tackle, and then you've got Steen. So there will be one more offensive lineman dressed. And I know Driscoll was taking snaps at center earlier, or maybe they would just slide Dickerson into center anyway, so it wouldn't matter.
That's a good question.
That'll be.
Well, that'll tell you the pecking order for.
We'll see.
And then just real quickly, just to get through some of the other notes from NovaCare, everyone else would have been limited. All the other injured players would have been limited yesterday. I don't think anyone is really in risk of missing this game with injury. If Jordan plays, I think DeVonta Smith, Dallas Goedert, Darius Slay are going to play. So the Eagles could have all 22 starters healthy for a Week 11 game, which is a good accomplishment. And then some of the other notes we'll mix in throughout the week in terms of J.Alex Hunt's playing time. A comment Vic Fangio made that we found interesting yesterday. But I think really the headliner today, and there's a video up on Instagram about it. There's going to be a story up later today on all PHLY, is Jordan Mailata's status.
By the way, did you guys know that this show is presented by the good folks at Bet365?
Now we do.
Download the Bet365 app and use code PHLY365 when you sign up. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. We all know that, right?
That's just common knowledge. You don't need to.
I mean, it's to say the obvious.
Jack Stoll talk has to come before that.
Exactly. Now we can really start the show. And I think we got to start with what is the juiciest matchup here, and probably one of their juicier matchups in the league this season, certainly for the Eagles this season so far, and that is the Commanders' offense against the Eagles' defense. Fran, I will start with you. And Zach, I actually want to ask you about Kliff Kingsbury in a minute here, but what does this offense look like? Does it look like what in our mind the classic Kliff Kingsbury offense is?
No, it's a little different. It's a little bit more vertical in terms of how they deploy their receivers. And I pulled some numbers for that, just looking at Kyler's last year under Kliff Kingsbury, Kyler Murray, the Arizona Cardinals quarterback. And I posted that in my notes, which you can find at allphly.com right now for the diehards. But when you look at the difference between Daniels and Kyler, a lot more vertical attempts. The screen passes are still there. There's a little bit more wide receiver screen usage in this offense. But I think when you look at it in terms of the concepts down the field, in Arizona, it was a lot of mesh and shallow crosses, get the ball into the receiver's hands, Hollywood Brown and the Rondell Moore, trying to get the ball to those guys fast.
About Greg Dortch.
And Greg Dortch, go Deeks. But when you look here at the way that these guys are used in Washington, a lot more double posts and deep digs. And look, that's the way that Jayden Daniels was used at LSU, a lot more vertical throws. But in this offense, watching them for the first time last week and really studying them, I was kind of taken aback by how vertical they were. And Jayden Daniels can make every throw. He can put a lot of stress on you in that way. And then I think just too, like schematically, they throw a lot at you. I mean, they're number 2 in screens. They're number 1 in RPO. They're number 6 in bunch. They're number 1 by a wide margin in no huddle. They're number 4 in empty. So they do so much in terms of their run game is very good, and they do a lot of different things in the run game. And so when you look at this offense, they put a lot of stress on you as a defense.
So how difficult does that make things for Vic Fangio from a game planning perspective this week, especially that tempo stuff? What is like your expectation for what their number one coaching point there?
I think the big thing that will help the Eagles in this instance is that they, over the last 2-3 weeks, I mean, they've been a heavy priority nickel defense almost exclusively the last few weeks anyway.
You think that's just full confidence in Cooper DeJean? Why take him off the field?
Probably. I think because of that hybrid skill set, the fact that he is a bigger nickel and can match up on tight ends and do some of the dirty work in the run game. If this was, if he was a smaller nickel, or if you were trying to get into your penny package and you were trying to mix and match the way that the Eagles did last year and even the way that they did earlier this season, I think that you probably would have a little bit more cause for concern in this one. But the fact that they have been so heavily leaned towards just their regular nickel package, the hurry up becomes less of a factor in that instance.
Now, I want to get to just the overall strength of these two units, Deniz. But while we're on Kingsbury, Zach, we do have to remember there's an alternate universe where Kliff Kingsbury is the Eagles' offensive coordinator. He's one of only two guys we know they interviewed.
Yeah, of course. The Eagles were interested in Kingsbury, and there's a clear connection there. Jalen Hurts was recruited by Kingsbury out of college. When Kingsbury was the coach at Texas Tech. Kingsbury's from that Lincoln Riley tree, which is an offense that Jalen Hurts thrived in. It's an offense that Howie Roseman's been an admirer of. Kliff Kingsbury went on record with the Washington Post saying that the Eagles' job is one he was interested in and would have accepted.
Interesting.
And I think he said Eagles and Bears were two teams that he didn't get offered. So
how'd the Bears do?
Yeah, seriously, the Bears, and that would have been more of a natural connection considering he worked with Caleb Williams last year. So there's a lot kind of behind the scenes here. I know the Eagles like Kellen Moore. They obviously interviewed him. I think Kellen Moore was more of the style that they were interested in. And one of the things to consider here is the Eagles have been really successful as a run offense. Under Jeff Stoutland, under Nick Sirianni, Kliff Kingsbury's run game concepts are quite different than what the Eagles have run under Stoutland. And you do wonder if there would have been, a different offensive approach and how that would have affected the coaching staff, the way they kind of work with the offensive line. Kellen Moore did bring in changes schematically, but I think there was more of a integration, if you will, with what the Eagles already had in place. And that was a big talking point during the offseason, was bringing Kellen Moore's concepts, working with Kevin Patullo, working with Nick Sirianni, working with Jeff Stoutland. And I don't know if it would have been more radically different had Kliff Kingsbury
come. It feels like
aboard.
Stoutland is the key there, right? Like nobody's messing with Jeff Stoutland's dominance over the run game, right?
Yeah, I mean, you had the note when he signed the contract extension about I think you said the highest paid position coach in the league. Is that and just the reverence in that building for Jeff Stoutland. Now, I don't know how it would have looked under Kliff Kingsbury, but I do know that there's been much more of a seamless transition with Jeff Stoutland and the Kellen Moore offense.
It's funny you mentioned Stoutland because Chip Kelly is who brought Stoutland here. And one of the reasons I didn't want Kingsbury as a fan was I didn't want to have trauma back to the Chip Kelly years. There are so many Chip Kelly-esque things about the way he does things. Fran mentioned that Washington is by far the number one no-huddle team. If you just look at the first three quarters, they're 64% no huddle. It's
crazy.
The league average is 10%.
Really?
And the second highest team is Chicago at 29%.
Right.
The Eagles are actually third at 28, but then it's most teams in the league are single digit.
That's only the Eagles
no
in
huddle.
the games when they don't want to run motion.
Right. That's right. But the the playing fast, always having guys lining up on the same side. I went back to my 2014 Eagles depth chart, and it says Riley Cooper, left wide receiver. Jeremy Maclin, right wide receiver, which seems like a ridiculous thing to write, but that's where they lined up on every play. Yeah. And Terry McLaurin lines up on the left on 77% of the snaps, and he lines up in the slot some too. So he almost never lines up on the right. And that makes them a little more predictable in terms of how you can match up with them. And
it does seem silly.
I think it's very silly, and I know Fran can speak to maybe some of the advantages of doing it that way. But one thing we know from watching the game perspective on Thursday is that Quinyon Mitchell always plays on that side. So we're going to see Terry McLaurin against Quinyon Mitchell over and over and over again on Thursday, and I think it'll be obviously a great test for Quinyon and a fun thing to watch.
Well, let's just talk about the strengths of these two units, Deniz. I mean, we're talking. In DVOA, this is the number 2 offense against the number 7 defense. EPA per drive, it's the number 2 offense against the number 5 defense. You want to do success rate, it's number 3 versus number 6. Yeah. And obviously the Eagles, all of those numbers are rising because since the bye, they have been perhaps the best defense in football.
Yeah. So since the bye, so it's going to be good versus good. I always tweet the the thing I see you have in front of you right now, which is like the advanced metrics for both teams, and I color code it. And there's a lot of green in the Washington offense against Philadelphia defense part of the spreadsheet, meaning that these are the two very good units at basically everything. And one thing that is a good sign, I think, for the Eagles is that if you look at it since the bye, the Eagles defense is on an upward trend, whereas the Washington offense is on a downward trend. Now, there was no other place for Washington's offense to go. I mean, they were historically good over the first 4 weeks, but they were first in EPA per drive by a mile over the first month. And if you look just since then, they are 7th in EPA per drive. So they've kind of come back down to the pack. Meanwhile, the Eagles defense was 26th going into the Eagles bye, which coincides with exactly when Washington started falling off, and are best in the whole league by EPA per drive since. Best in series conversion rate, which I love to talk about. It's the rate at which the opponents convert first downs when they have 1st and 10. By a
love the batting
considerable
average
margin. And that's a good. Yeah, actually, we were talking about this off the air. The league average for series conversion rate is about 70.1%. So that equates to like a if you look at it from the defense's perspective, getting a stop on a series of downs, the average in the league is like batting 290 in baseball, right?
Right.
And so you can think of like, where are you over a certain span as being kind of like what a baseball hitter would be. And the Eagles, since the bye, have been allowing 58.3% conversion. So that's like batting 417 over the course of like 5 games, 6
like
games.
Ted Williams-esque.
Yeah, and when you look at like, I'll do the Shield thing where I do like the distance to the second team and all that. Like the distance between the Eagles and the second place Lions is the same as the distance between the Lions and the 15th place Dolphins. So they're just like off the charts. And since I like to tease Zach about how important third down is, I'll talk about...
We won't go down that rabbit hole.
We'll talk about not third down, the first 2 downs. The Eagles have only been allowing first downs on early downs since the bye 33% of the time. And the league average on that is 48%. And the distance between the Eagles and the 5th place team is the same as the distance between the 5th place team and the 30th place team. So any way you look at it, the Eagles defense has been off the charts good since the bye, whereas Washington's offense has gone a little bit back to normal.
And for the tape munchers, not just good, but fun.
Oh, so fun.
Yeah.
I mean, Fran talked a little bit about the film on Monday. There were so many Fangio classics in this game, just kind of working to perfection. I mean, started the game with what's known as a slug pressure with Cooper DeJean blitzing from one side and the edge dropping off on the other. And then a safety rotation down, and CJGJ like violently hits the running back as he rotates down to set the tone really for the whole game. We saw whip a lot of times with one of the linebackers blitzing the B gap opposite the side of the edge dropping. Eagles are really low in blitz rate rankings if you just look at the services, but that's because those don't count as blitzes, right? Like those are pressures that are playing with the quarterback and the offensive line's protection, but they don't have more than 4 rushers, and so it doesn't appear as a blitz. But it's just been so fun to watch.
Now, the person who's leading this Commanders offense, we have not yet really talked about, and that is Jayden Daniels. Zach, what did Jalen Hurts say about Jayden Daniels?
Not much. He said he's always liked Jayden Daniels. He won the Heisman Trophy, and he's doing a good job there. Then there was a question about Brian Johnson and how Brian Johnson's affected Jayden Daniels. He says he keeps in touch with Brian Johnson, but he can't answer how he's affected Jayden Daniels. It's interesting how...
So many little connections in this game.
Yeah, many connections in this game. Jayden Daniels, the success is incredible. Is incredible. I heard Ron Jaworski say this week on WIP that he's like the best rookie quarterback he's ever seen. What stood out to Vic Fangio was the lack of interceptions that he has, and then Vic Fangio also noted, he said he's a good player, but that coaching staff's done a really good job with him as well. But Jalen, I'll just give one other like reporting nugget here. This is an interesting, a good question from Tim McManus today when he asked Nick Sirianni if he's showing the team the clip of Jalen Carter with Jayden Daniels, which I'm sure Fran saw quite a bit in the scouting circles of Jalen Carter literally lifted Jayden Daniels up with like one hand, basically, in that Georgia LSU game. And Nick was like trying to stay far away. He's like, we have a lot of respect for Jayden Daniels. He's a really good player. There's a lot of film on of him since that game that we're focusing on.
But he said you guys can show that.
Yeah, but then he's like, but you guys will show that clip.
I like that.
And so that clip is going to go around.
Fran, what is so impressive about Jayden Daniels to you?
Yeah, I mean, everything he knows where his answers are within this offense and with this pass game. Really, really decisive. And even when he takes off as a runner, I mean, he's decisive in doing so. And he's been so good as a scrambler over the course of the season. No quarterback has gained more EPA as a scrambler this year. Zach talked about the turnovers. Fewest turnovers by a rookie quarterback in his first 10 games since 1991. Put the ball on the ground 3 times against Tampa in week 1. Hasn't done it since. The lack of interceptions there, and he's only
feel like that's like due for regression, or
you would
or
think
is he
so.
playing that clean?
He's playing clean. He's only. I went and just watched through True Media just the dropped interceptions. There's only one. He had a bad overthrow on the run against Baltimore that went right through a safety's hands. But other than that,
he's leading the league in Bo's favorite stat,
Yeah.
PFF's turnover-worthy play percentage. He has the fewest.
Yeah, I know Sheil said that on his pod this week as well. I think when you look at Daniels, the one thing I didn't mention about the verticality in this offense and how it feels a little different than from the Kliff Kingsbury offense we've seen in the past. The offense that it actually kind of reminds me of is Brian Johnson's offense in Florida when he was the offensive coordinator down there and got Kyle Pitts drafted in the top 5. I think that his impact is being felt down there in terms of the way that they're trying to stress defenses.
First of all, great subtle dig at the quality of the offense being so good that it even got Kyle Pitts drafted at number 5. Love that. Do you think that means that this is like this is really Brian Johnson's offense, not Kliff Kingsbury's?
Well, it goes to the thing of like everybody's involved, and so you get obviously. Look, I don't think Brian Johnson, if it was his offense, would have Terry McLaurin as the left receiver 80% of the time and things like that. But no, I do think that his influence is felt, and some of that you're leaning into what Jayden Daniels does well also. So I think the big thing with Jayden Daniels, if you're the Eagles, if you're Vic Fangio going into this game, the big thing is you want to be able to pressure him, but you also have to contain him, right? So you have to kind of toe that line. And I think Pittsburgh this week did an excellent job of doing that, of creating pressure, a lot more man blitzes than I would have expected coming in. Like I would have thought, all right, you don't want to play a ton of man coverage.
Turn your back, right?
Hey, like Pittsburgh played man-to-man, and they went with 5-man pressures. And what they did was that 5th guy that went in was typically Patrick Queen. And he kind of just slow played his rush and just stayed. It was almost like quasi QB spy, but was also like going to insert as a pressure player late as well. And so, I don't know
something you can see this defense doing
potentially. Could Zack Baun be what Patrick Queen is? The other guy, I was thinking about this in the drive-in. If you wanted to get like crazy in this game,
go full Keenan Clayton against Peyton Manning level game plan.
No, you know what I was thinking though was 3rd downs. You go to dime.
Sidney
Brown is that guy. And I wonder if that could be something that so it's not Avonte Maddox in this game. It's Sidney Brown as the 6 DB.
I've been waiting for that anyway.
Yeah.
I've been waiting for that anyway. I've been surprised that it's still Avonte Maddox.
Yeah, I think that could be an answer for them. Potentially.
He's the guy who athletically would make sense.
Yes, because you certainly don't want Nakobe being that guy against Jayden Daniels, and I think that even Baun could get out leveraged in those situations. But Sidney's got that kind of explosiveness that he could do that. Now they haven't done it at all so far this season, but they also haven't gone up against a player like Jayden Daniels. The big thing with Daniels, when he breaks the pocket, he is breaking the pocket to run. It's like I know going into this pass game against Pittsburgh, I was looking at Next Gen. When he broke the pocket, it was like in terms of Next Gen, it was like a record run rate when he scrambled. So it wasn't like that he was taking off to throw. He is running at a high rate. Now, this past week against Pittsburgh, they did such a great job of containing him. It was the first time he did not scramble and run and pick up positive yardage as a runner. Was this past week against Pittsburgh, but every other game we've seen him do that. And again, it gained more EPA than anybody in the league. Well more than even I think Jalen Hurts was number 2, and he was way out in front of Jalen.
If I can just buttress the point about the lack of interceptions, this was him in college too. He had, I think, 7 interceptions and 715 attempts at LSU. When he came on the map at Arizona State, I think it was like 17 touchdowns to 2 interceptions. This is kind of the way he's been playing. As far as the Steelers game, that was asked specifically to Vic Fangio what they did to limit the running, and he mentioned, and this is also to Fran's point, the way T.J. Watt and Alex Highsmith played as pass rushers, keeping him in the pocket.
It's different, right? Because the strength of that pass rush is on the edge. The strength of the Eagles' pass rush is up the middle.
Yeah. So to follow up on all of this, about the Pittsburgh game, I watched the film of that last night, and I was surprised at how much man they played. And it was just very notable how much the Washington tackles did struggle. Now, both of those tackles will be different in this game, right? So to talk about, I just watched Dan Quinn's press conference, and he pretty much made it clear that Cornelius Lucas and
is it Cornelius Lucas or Lucas Cornelius.
This is a good question. I think it's Cornelius Lucas.
Okay.
And Andrew Wiley, who we remember from the Chiefs.
Now, Wiley Andrew, that would be a cool name.
That would be good. Will both be starting in this game instead of the rookie Brandon Coleman and Trent Scott, who started against Pittsburgh.
I do wonder if it'll be Coleman still, though.
You think so?
Because they were kind of platooning those two guys at left
Right.
tackle. It was a left tackle rotation to start the year.
Love that.
The Coleman they drafted in the 3rd round. They had high hopes for him, and he's started the last 2 games. I kind of think it might be Coleman, but obviously we'll
Now
wait to see.
you called. I noticed you mentioned that you think Lucas is kind of like a Fred Johnson, like
He's in terms
similar.
of like skill set, yes.
So the upside for Coleman is higher, but
No question. Yeah.
Okay.
I kind of like Coleman as a potential starter. I was surprised he fell as far as he did in the draft.
I was
Right.
texting someone down in Washington who knows the team quite well and said
Flex.
said
Josh Harris.
the Andrew Wiley
Yeah.
the Andrew Wiley return would be a real big one for that offensive
question.
line.
Now, about the scrambling, now we mentioned Daniel scrambles a lot. He scrambles once out of every 7 or so times he drops back, which is the most in the league. And that's, like the Eagles haven't played a quarterback like that this year. The Eagles have played maybe 1 or 2 snaps the whole year of actually having someone be a spy. So I don't think that would happen. And like Fran was saying, Pittsburgh wasn't exactly spying him. Zach was there yesterday when Quinyon Mitchell was talking about how Daniels will take off if he sees a lane, whether it's against man or zone coverage, and that the coaches have been emphasizing that they need to, quote unquote, play 2 downs against him, like 1 to stop the initial play and 1 to stop the second play when he starts scrambling. And it was really funny that Dan Quinn used exactly the same expression when talking about defending Jalen Hurts.
Really?
In his presser on Monday. So I thought that was funny. The one thing I'll be looking at like more carefully than maybe the rest of the defensive line when the game starts tomorrow night is Josh Sweat. He is often nosy and spikes inside and will let the play get outside of him, whether it's a run or a scrambling quarterback. So when Sweat's in the game, and he's going to be up against whether it's Coleman or Lucas, like he's going to be up against somebody who he thinks he can beat, right? So he's going to want to use his whole arsenal of moves, and sometimes that means that he gets caught inside. So that's something that he'll probably be told to focus on not doing too often.
It's a great point, especially regarding Sweat, because he does typically do that. And Pittsburgh was so good just keeping everything inside of them. Their discipline in the rush lanes was really, really good. And just going back to like the want to pressure him. I mean, look, he's getting blitzed more than any quarterback in football right now. Number 1 in terms of how often he's been blitzed. And one thing that I noticed just looking at his pressure numbers, he's 5th worst in the league in adjusted completion percentage, which takes into account removes the drops and throwaways and spikes and all that. He's 5th worst in adjusted completion percentage when he's pressured. He's 3rd best when he's clean. It's nearly a 30 percentage point drop under pressure, which I didn't do all the numbers, but just kind of eyeballing it, that was the worst of all the starting quarterbacks in football. Huge drop in that production. 32 scrambles when he's under pressure. That's 10 more than the next quarterback. So I think that's where you can kind of invite the variance there, is if you're able to pressure him. But again, you need to make sure you contain him while doing it.
All right, I have a follow-up for that, but first we got to take a word from our sponsors. With Empire today, you get shop at home convenience, the right product for your needs, quick and professional installation, and that price match guarantee. Zach loves that price match guarantee, especially at other places, but you get it at Empire today when you are looking for the best flooring in the business. At Empire today, they keep shopping for floors simple with a curated product selection, and their philosophy is pretty simple, and it's one that you should appreciate. They want to help you find what you need, not overwhelm you with thousands of choices and substitutes. What they leave out of their selection is just as important as what they put in. They don't want to waste your time. Empire's product team exhaustively combs through thousands of product samples each year to find the perfect styles. They also service their own warranties. And if an issue does arise, just give Empire a call. They service all warranties themselves, so you won't have to track down a manufacturer's phone number. The best in the business. That's why they're with us at PHLY. Schedule a free in-home estimate today. All listeners can receive a $350 off discount when they use the promo code PHLY. Restrictions apply. See empiretoday.com/PHLY for details.
I was chatting with some people about a high school reunion, and we were talking about those who age over 2 decades. And during the conversation,
Is there anyone who doesn't age?
can I please?
Or degrees to which they age?
We were talking about the way people age over 2 decades. And I wanted to say at one point in the conversation, well, you know who you should call is the Glatt Hair Restoration by Morgenstern Medical. Okay, because the glatt hair restoration at Morgenstern Medical is a great place to turn. They have the same peerless approach to care, the same expert team, the same unmatched glatt system, the same state-of-the-art location, the same stellar results under the direction of Dr. Morgenstern, a highly respected plastic surgeon. Each member of this exceptionally trained team brings 30-plus years of industry experience. Hair restoration is all that they do. Each patient receives a complimentary one-on-one consultation to pinpoint the best course of treatment. Caring patient advocates I'll work with you from the first phone call to the last follow-up visit. They understand that this decision can be emotional and challenging. They're here to help you make your experience simple and stress-free. Glatt hair restoration isn't just about restoration. It's about innovation. Their breakthrough treatments really do dramatically change lives. Change your hair and change your life. Bald is now optional. If you want to improve how you look and how you feel about yourself, Glatt Hair has the right treatment for you. Regain your confidence. Visit glatthairmctr.com or call 610-980-4000 to get started.
Speaking of bald, Zach, I wore a logoless hat in your honor.
Yes, it looks.
I've been waiting for the compliment.
That's what I'm saying. It's a popular hat.
Yeah.
And
Well, that's not the same hat.
I wasn't saying that specifically a hat was popular.
The concept of logo.
You were saying, I took it to mean that you were saying that specific hat is a popular hat.
I meant the look. I didn't mean that hat. Like you can wear
that's
whatever.
absolutely how I took it.
The chat took it that way too, because the chat now wants to see the hat. Like they want you to wear the hat.
Not just the idea of a logoless hat.
I meant the black logoless hat is a popular look. I didn't mean that hat. It could be any.
I thought you were really banging on that specific brand. Like,
no. I'm brand agnostic in that regard. I had a gift card and I used it on the logoless hat. It's just.
well, then you had a gift card to a specific brand.
Yeah, I didn't buy the gift card for myself.
Okay.
Someone gave me the gift card, Bo, and then I'm like, I went to the store and I was like, I want a black.
I've been hearing about these popular.
Yes, I want a black logoless
faceless
hat.
lids you've got.
I want a black logoless hat. This is a good one. I like the fit.
How could you tell them apart?
Excuse me? How'd I tell that?
Do they have a whole array of different black logoless hats?
Well, they have some hats with logos on it, some hats without logos on it. I got the one without logo. It's deductive selection. Yeah.
Okay. Before we take a look at the super chats, Deniz, Julia has let me know that you have not sent her your Swooper submissions ahead of time.
Oh, that's correct, because I am here, Julia.
Yeah, but she needs to get the graphics ready.
Oh.
Go ahead and shoot those over while I check out the super chats that we have here. Tyler says, Zach, any plans on ditching the techno-fascist propaganda machine that is X for our new social oasis, Bluesky?
Isn't it Blue Sky?
It's Blue Sky.
Yeah, I'm on Blue Sky. Of course I'm on Blue Sky.
Are you?
Bo trying to make
okay.
Blue Sky sound more communist for some reason.
Yeah,
I like Bluesky.
Yeah, I signed up for Blue Sky. I have accounts. I have accounts on Blue Sky, on Threads, on X. Reasonably, if I'm being honest with you, I just have more followers on X right now. So if I'm trying to reach a broader audience, putting it on X, if there were 78,000 people following me on, or 86,000, I think it is, following me on. On Blue Sky, then I would put all my stuff on Blue Sky. But if I'm this was when I tried converting the Threads at one point, or tried posting stuff to Threads. If you're posting it to like 500 people, it's not reaching the same audience. So that's, I will, trust me, I believe fundamentally you should go, you need to meet the audience where they are. That's partly why I'm here doing this show, because I saw the demand for podcasts, for video shows, and we're meeting the audience where they are.
It's hard. I've been trying to double post, just so everybody knows. If you want to follow me on Blue Sky, I am on there. And I've been trying to post everything I post on Twitter over there as well, and hoping that people follow.
We also have another super chat from CDP, who says, with Amazon broadcasting this game, should Bezos instruct link management to ban fans cheering in an effort to avoid a perception of bias?
Who are they
Fair
asking
point.
here?
They're asking you, Zach.
Oh, they're asking me? No, I don't think that. I don't think fans in this sense are the customers, and Yeah, no, I think they want as many customers as they can.
All right,
as
let's stick with this matchup because we stretch this one a little bit. There's plenty more meat on this bone. The passing game very McLaurin heavy, right?
Yep.
And then Zach Ertz is the number 2 receiver.
Correct.
Now I do feel very validated by Noah Brown's performance there. Absent,
He's the right wide receiver.
he's the right wide receiver.
As opposed to the wrong one.
If it is that we're going to get so much Quinn Mitchell against Terry McLaurin, what is facing the rest of the Eagles defense?
I mean, Jayden Daniels explained it recently in a press conference to say that it's wide receiver by committee, and they basically just use those other guys in kind of grab bag fashion. Noah Brown they use for his size. Olamide Zaccheaus, former Eagle, they use for his toughness and his ability to kind of get open underneath. Diami Brown, who's been there for a couple of years now, he's their vertical threat, and so they basically just kind of mix and match. Luke McCaffrey working down the seam, working in the middle of the field. They use all these guys, and they just kind of mix and match based off matchups. But McLaurin definitely is the lead dog in that passing attack over the last, I think, since week 3. Yeah, since week 3, he's had at least 90 yards and a touchdown in every single game since week 3. So I mean, just very consistently feeding him the football. Deniz touched on the matchup between him and Quinn Mitchell. We're going to see a ton of that. What's really interesting, and this is from Next Gen Stats. So. McLaurin has been pressed at a really high rate just because he typically is the ISO receiver and is always out on the boundary on the left side. So he's been pressed at a really high rate, and he's recorded I have the routes here. So against an NFL high plus 4.1 completions over expected versus press coverage. Quinn Mitchell, since the bye, I actually didn't realize this. So there was the game against Tampa.
Yes.
Right. And they go to the bye week. By that point, going into the bye, Quinn Mitchell was pressing on 2.1% of snaps. Like, basically nothing. Since that point, 34%.
Wow.
Like a huge astronomical jump. And so we will see a lot of press man, one-on-one, single coverage in this game between those two guys. It'll be a really fun matchup to watch. A good test for Quinn.
In that first stretch that you mentioned, Fran, you'll remember the Eagles as a team led the league in highest percentage of snaps where both corners were playing off.
Yep.
And that really manifested itself in that Tampa game where it just seemed like they were giving them the flats and also not tackling the guy who got the ball.
Right. Yep.
And that has looked different, like aesthetically looked really different since then.
Yeah. The basically essentially what and I wasn't always like, oh, they need to press and that's the answer. I think it's more like, all right, like if you feel comfortable pressing, like go up and press. You can feel free to be a little bit more aggressive that way. But the big thing is just not allowing all of that space that they did give up and then tackling the catch, and they're doing a much better job at that. Number 1 in the NFL right now in yards after the catch per reception, or I should say number 1 in that category since the bye week. To your point, so
with games against Jamar Chase,
right,
Neighbors, CD Lamb, right, yeah,
who excel after the catch,
and it's funny because as you made sure to point out in your write-up this week, this was like the big question about Quinn Mitchell coming in.
Yep.
Can this guy press? And he has shown over the past few weeks that he can. What about Zach told us about the Kingsbury running game, how it's different. They have been very successful, as per Deniz's numbers. 3rd in the league in rush success rate, or sorry, 2nd in the league in rush success rate, 4th in EPA per rush. What kind of challenge is that going to be?
Well, Brian Robinson, real quick, is hoping to play.
Yeah, so, looks optimistic that he's going to play. He's missed the last 2 weeks, and he missed a game earlier this season as well. So he was dealing with it. I think it's a hamstring, right? Yes, it's a hamstring. So I think when you're looking at this run game, honestly, it's pretty similar to when teams have to prepare for the Eagles. There are a lot of different layers to it. Obviously, there's the scrambles, and you have to take that into account. That certainly adds to a lot of their EPA in terms of a rushing offense. So you've got the scramble outside of structure from Jayden Daniels. Then you get into the designed QB element. You've got the regular zone read. You've got the counter read. You've got the QB counter read. You've got the quarterback sweeps. All of those are plays that are in the playbook. Jayden Daniels said after the game this past week against Pittsburgh, he said, that they shut the quarterback run game down. Like that was not available to us in this football game. So then, all right, that's a layer to take away. So you just have to be really, good gap sound. The way that we've seen the gap exchanges and things like that. All right, well, if he's reading the defensive end takes the back, then you need to have a linebacker or a second level defender scrape over the top of that and be present to be there to stop and corral Jayden Daniels. And so that's something that the Eagles will have to have buttoned up certainly in this game. And then you have your just typical run game. They're running at the 5th highest rate between the tackles, a lot of downhill run schemes. When they run their zone concepts, they are typically on a downhill track. When you look at Brian Robinson, that's his bread and butter. He's a high cut guy, runs through contact well. He's able to force missed tackles at a high rate. Austin Eckler is doing a nice job so far this year for them. More of a change of pace guy, obviously, but they got creative early on in the season. They don't have a ton of receiver talent, so they got creative with a lot of the different pony personnel sets with both he and Brian Robinson on the field at the same time. If Robinson's healthy, I would expect we'll still see that. And their screen game is really good. So it's a lot where it's, all right, you're going to run play action with Brian Robinson to the left, and you throw a screen to Eckler to the right. Those kind of plays will be in their toolbox in this game.
So I guess the question, and I'll start with you, Deniz, is given all of that and given how good the Eagles' defense has been, you brought up the Sidney Brown possibility. Is this the kind of game where we see Vic do something different in anticipation of a different challenge? We haven't seen him play a quarterback this dynamic this season. Or do you think he'll sort of stick with what has worked? Like, if they're very run heavy, are we going to see more Jordan Davis than we have? What do you expect on that front?
Yeah, well, this is a very timely question, Bo, because last year, Vic Fangio happened to have a game against Jalen Hurts. And in that game, I thought he had a brilliant plan to deal with some of the zone reads and the RPOs, including one that led to a pick 6 in the second half. I'm looking at my notes of that now. It was a RPO, zone read RPO with a pass, and they had a blitz from the nickel right into Jalen's face, if you remember, and he threw the ball anyway, and then the guy tipped it, and the linebacker caught it and ran it back for a touchdown. That play and a couple of other plays in that game made it very clear that Fangio had studied the Eagles zone read game very well and had people in the right position to handle it. So the game that's making me feel the best about how he's going to handle Jayden Daniels is the way that he handled Jalen Hurts last year. Now, the Eagles did win that game pretty easily in the end, but it was
also their best defensive game plan of the season.
Awesome.
Yeah, exactly. It was like Sean Desai's moment, right?
Yes.
With like everybody out and everything. But no, it's on that side of the ball. And the Eagles offense overall like had a good game that game, but against the zone read stuff in particular, on that pick 6 and also on a couple of other plays, it was clear that Fangio had stuff called that exactly was there to take away those RPOs and those zone reads. And I noticed watching the film of Washington, they have some really creative play action and RPO stuff off of the run game. They had like a trap RPO. I don't even know if it was an RPO or play action, Fran. Maybe you have a better idea, but they threw like a bubble screen on the backside of a trap run, which you rarely see. I mean, like normally those like, the run concept is not normally like a complicated double trap type gap scheme thing when you're running those backside bubble screens. And they had stuff like that going on. So it's going to be a challenge, like mentally, especially on a short week.
Yeah, to your point, I put in my notes for this game about the getting into like the pressure and containing Jayden Daniels. If the Eagles do decide that they want to blitz in this game, or if just using those exchange pressures that we've seen from Vic Fangio, I think it'll be less Baun and Nakobe Dean up the middle and more Cooper DeJean or a safety off the edge. I think you're going to see more of those in this game just because when you face a quarterback like Jayden Daniels, you don't want the pressure to be coming up the middle to force him outside. You want everything to keep him in. And so that's what you saw from Pittsburgh is typically the rush came from the outside in. Even with the TJ Watt, they were lining TJ Watt inside and looping him outside because you want to try and make sure you kind of contain him in that way. So I'd imagine we'd see more Cooper DeJean rushes than Nakobe Dean rushes inside.
Do you think that also means we see a little bit more Brandon Graham just because he's so good at keeping that edge?
Potentially.
Doesn't get picky, whereas Huff does. Nolan has been pretty good at that too.
I think Nolan will be important in this game for that reason. Yeah.
Okay. Well, no, go ahead.
I was just going to say this was a big storyline for Fangio last year going into the Ravens game. And it was kind of discussed when he coached against Lamar Jackson when he was with Denver as well. Those 2 games, Lamar Jackson was limited on the ground, both those games. It was one of his worst rushing performances of the season last year, was one of his worst rushing performances of the season when Fangio played against him with Denver. The flip side is Lamar Jackson killed him through the air, killed him against Denver. Lamar was 22 of 37 for 316 yards. Last year was even worse, 18 of 21, 321 yards, 5 touchdowns. So there was a lot of attention paid to limiting him as a runner, and Lamar Jackson killed him through the air.
Interesting.
They didn't have Cooper DeJean and Quinn Mitchell.
Yeah.
Anything else from Vic this week that's worth hitting on?
Well, I want to mention the Zack Baun thing. Is that deviating from?
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Yeah, so this was interesting because we've spent a lot of time on the show talking about the evaluation of Zack Baun and saying, was this the pro scouting staff? Was this Vic Fangio? And Vic Fangio laid it all out yesterday when he said Howie Roseman identified Zack Baun, brought it to him as a backup edge rusher and special teams player. And by the way, when the Eagles signed Zack Baun, this was kind of how it was pitched behind the scenes. Was this is a guy who can be, you know, an edge rusher for you. Now they did mention, you know, the Van Ginkel reference did come up, but it was never like your starting inside backer. So Vic Fangio said he watched the tape and said, no, this is an inside linebacker. And he said it's
So
good that
funny.
one worked out.
What a call.
What a call. Exactly.
Yeah.
And then he also said that the improvement on tackling is because they've emphasized it. And he had a coach one time who
Because they got
told
to
him,
practice. I'm surprised that's not what he said.
if you emphasize something, you should be able to do it. And they've emphasized tackling. He said Jim Mora told him that a long time ago.
It's crazy that Fangio arrived at that conclusion based on like a couple of plays where the running back motioned, and so
Right.
Baun was on the end, but then he like ended up being off ball for like the play or whatever. And from those like 3 plays, he was like, "This guy is going to be my number one inside linebacker."
And he said it from the beginning. He's the first guy he mentioned.
Could also have been off the college eval too. Might
Yeah.
be like, hey, I viewed this guy as a off ball backer from the jump back
That's
in
a good point.
Wisconsin.
And, you know, Vic Fangio did say, and I'm going to have a story in 2 weeks on this, about, you know, he said he's best at evaluating inside linebackers. And he talked about the guys he's evaluated. And he does have a really good track record with inside backers.
This is a good writing tip that you do. Is you're publicly giving yourself a deadline on these stories, so you have to hold to it. It's good.
Well, sometimes I create like artificial pegs. Like, you know, I wrote the story last week that I'd been working on, you know, Saquon Barkley. And is he changing the way, you know, the league views running backs? And we talked about it on the show. And I was like, there'd be a really good peg against the Cowboys because the Cowboys didn't do this.
Right.
I don't think people bought that peg too much. I'm thinking the Ravens because the Ravens have Roquan Smith. That was one of the guys. That's one of the prototypes for Vic Fangio. The story could probably run whenever, but yeah, I always like finding pegs. That's probably the old newspaper guy in me, where the Sunday Inquirer would be like a picture of, you know, Eli Manning versus Michael Vick, and it's like right about these two quarterbacks. Yeah.
It's also why he buys himself gift cards so he can buy the hat on time.
I thought you were going to talk about him loving pegs, but that's
well.
a different conversation.
Peg, loving pegs. What's
Adult
Pegging, yeah,
man.
Adult.
We can talk about it after this break. Our good friends at Bet365, not only the presenting sponsors of this episode and this show, but they're coming up right now because they're never ordinary. Bet365 has 90 million users worldwide, and they live stream over 780,000 events each year with early payout offers across the NBA, NFL, NHL, and MLB. Bet365 pioneered live in-game betting, and today they offer the widest range of games and markets available for live in-game betting across 78 sports. You can join in on the fun. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Use the code PHLY365 to sign up. Deposit $10 and place a bet for $5 to get $150 in bonus bets. Bonus bets can be used on the spread, totals, player props, futures, and more. I would ask you, Fran, who's going to win the Thursday night game, but I got to save that for later in the show.
Save it for later.
All right. Every day, Bet365 boosts up the odds on hundreds of bets to give you a chance to win more with over 10,000 boosts every month. We've even got the custom PHLY boosts that Jamie Lynch has been kind enough to help out and just rake in that cash for you. Download the Bet365 app. Use code PHLY365 when you sign up to get $150 in bonus bets when you bet $5. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 or older, physically located in Pennsylvania. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER.
So let's now talk about our friends at TrueMark Financial Credit Union, because it's getting to that time of year very fast where money can get a little tight, especially if you have a big expense coming up unexpectedly. Whether there's an unplanned emergency or something that is planned, like paying for school, a big home improvement project. You guys know the deal by this point. It is the holiday season, and a big chunk of money like that is going to leave you hurting. And that's where TrueMark Financial Credit Union comes in with the home equity line of credit. They call it the HELOC. And the HELOC allows homeowners to borrow against home equity with a variable interest rate. You can preserve your savings and get access to funds for whatever that big expense is. But you know what? It's not just about the big expense. Like I said, it is the holiday season. You might have your eyes on a gift for a loved one. You may want to buy yourself a little something at the end of the year. If you want that Ben Van Sumeren jersey, or if you got your eyes on a custom Thomas Booker, Kelly Green kit, well, you use TrueMark Financial's budgeting tools to save for special purchases exactly like that. Regular contributions accumulate over time to help you reach your savings goals very effectively. Transferring as little as $5 a week gives you more than enough for whatever you've got your eyes on. TrueMark Financial is federally insured by the NCUA and is an equal opportunity lender. For more information, visit truemark.com/PHLY.
All right, let's hit the super chats again.
This will be a good one.
Today?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I was going to say.
Okay. Santiago continues to give us his money. We appreciate that, Santiago. He says, "You guys are the only friends I have.
Oh,
Thank you
nice.
for being my friends." Mike says, "Zach,
really
as
say
a
that,
fan, sicko, and customer, I implore you to start cultivating an audience on Blueski. The people will come if you post. Go Birds."
Wait, here, can I just ask one quick thing? Because
Sure.
this has come up in our internal Slack channel. If anyone knows a mechanism in place that would allow me to post on all social medias at once, that would be very beneficial. So I don't have to jump from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. I kind of feel like Ryan Howard in The Office when he had
Woof.
yeah. But if there's a way that I can put inactives up and it goes to 7 places, that would be wonderful. So email me, DM me. Happy
Message him on Blueski.
Of all the things you post, Zach, inactives is the one.
I was
Something
joking.
that only Zach can get
Yes,
you.
I was joking.
We also have a super chat from Steven Schlurby Hubert, just shouting us out. We appreciate that, Schlurby. And again, Santiago, thank you for your patronage. We appreciate it. Okay. Anything else on this side of the matchup? Can we move on to the other side?
Real quick thing about, you guys mentioned Brandon Graham playing and nickel and base. Washington does play a lot of weird personnel groupings.
Yes.
Like 20% of their snaps are in groupings other than 11 and 12. They play 21, 13, 22, 10, 20, 02, 01, 03. They have a lot of 6 offensive lineman stuff. So Fangio is going to have some sort of plan ready of how to match against all these different personnel groupings, some of which are heavy. Eagles have played base on double-digit snaps once this year. And that was against the Saints.
That Saints game, right?
Yeah, that was it. And 27 snaps of base in that game, no more than 9 in any other game.
Yeah.
The one thing they've done since then is that I call it the contained nickel package. I don't know what you would call it, Fran. The 3 defensive tackles, 1 defensive end, and
Right.
then it's just normal nickel behind it.
Yep.
They'll do that, but even that, they've only done 6 snaps in the last 5 games. So they did it 12 times against Tampa Bay. But since then, they haven't really used that either. I would expect to see a lot of that in this game.
Could see that in this game, yeah.
Right,
I
as
can
a
see
way
that.
to kind of both have Cooper DeJean on the field and still have run-stopping type defensive linemen. And you mentioned Brandon Graham earlier. When they play the 3D tackle, 1 defensive end package, it's almost always Brandon Graham with his hand on the ground as the 1 defensive end.
The only thing about it would be if they would be worried about getting to too much mixing and matching if they are going to go hurry up and play hurry up as much, because just in case they catch you in a look that you don't want with that personnel group.
That's true, but the one thing to remember about NFL rules is
Right.
that if they substitute, you can substitute. So if it's a matter of matching personnel, you can match it. But absolutely, if it's just the down and distance thing, you don't want to get caught in a bad grouping.
The last nugget I had, Bo, just this was something that Shield brought up over on the Philly Special Pod, but Kliff Kingsbury and his offenses and his teams, how they've kind of been more first half oriented of the season. I went back and just looked at those numbers. So in weeks 1 through 9, he's got a winning percentage as a head coach and offensive coordinator of just over 600, 602. From weeks 10 on, it drops down to 281. Last year at USC, they did the same thing. During his time as the head coach at Texas Tech, it was the same thing. He was 7-14 weeks 10 and on at Texas Tech. He had a better record than that in the first 10 weeks, or the first 9 weeks. So just something to watch.
Well, we're starting to see
What
the
do you think that
regression.
is?
They went from best in the league to 7th already from the first quarter to the second.
This past week against Pittsburgh, they had a season low 242 yards. They had 5 3-and-outs. They had 6 punts. All were season highs. Jayden Daniels season low completion percentage this past week against Pittsburgh. Fewest rushing yards of his career.
There you go. All right, some optimism for the Eagles on that side of the ball. All right, now, Deniz, as you said, the book on this Commanders team early was best offense in the league, worst defense in the league.
And by a mile on both sides of the ball.
Right.
Like the EPA per drive chart that I tweet out every week, like they were resetting the scale on both axes. Their offense was so much better than everybody else. That the graph looked ridiculous, and their defense was so much worse than everybody else that they were just in one corner and all the other teams were kind of in the middle.
And since then, Zach's boy, Dan Quinn, has helped turn it around, just like his hat.
Just like,
He does always wear the backwards hat, like always, in all situations. I'm guessing he wears it to bed. Like, I mean, that's just his look. They were dead last, like I said, over the first 4 games on defense by EPA per drive. If you just look at the 6 games since, they're the 8th best defense in the league. Like the offense and the defense are performing at the same level since week 5 for Washington. Yep. They have the 7th best offense and the 8th best defense. So they've just been kind of solidly good on both sides of the ball. And I think a lot of the narrative about their offense is awesome and their defense isn't that good is coming from that first month. The overall metrics still look like that because it was so stark that first month. But if you want to use
days when Clint Kubiak was lighting the world on fire.
That's right. That's right. And that's a good point, actually, is that, like, I know you want the larger sample normally, like, because otherwise you get a lot of noise. But sometimes there's just like a very stark trend of improvement. Like, I think for the Eagles defense, it makes sense to think that they're going to play more like the last 6 games than before the bye. And same thing here with the Washington defense. They seem to have fixed a bunch of things, and Fran can get into the film, like, reasons why. But they're not the terrible defense that started the season. So this, like, we shouldn't think that this is just going to be like, an easy game for the Eagles offense.
Now, it does seem like the one place where they are weak, or I guess weakest, Fran, is on the outside, and there's going to be no Marshawn Lattimore coming for them in this game, right? And so you would think, just looking at it, A.J. Brown and DeVonta Smith against these Garbanzo Beans corners is a big opportunity.
Here's what I would say. Here's what I would say about, look, the Eagles are better. The Eagles are better. You know, I would take A.J. Brown and DeVonta Smith over their corners, no question. But the word of caution I would use would be, it's the same thing about what we would say about those corners in Dallas, where it's like, oh, like Trayvon Diggs gives up all these yards. The way that they play, I mean, it's tough to play that much man-to-man and be able to hold up consistently. And when you're not taking the ball away on the back end, like Trayvon Diggs and Deron Bland and the rest of those Dallas corners have, that's where it's like, all right, you don't get the positives on top of what we've seen from a negative standpoint. Benjamin St-Juste is a talented cover corner. He's put in a lot of tough situations. And like he's not a top 5, not a top 10 corner in football, but he's a talented man-to-man guy. Mike Sanderstill is the other starter on the outside now.
That is Zach's favorite.
Well, Sanderstill, he is going to be long-term. He's their Jordan Lewis in this scheme, right? He's going to be their nickel corner, especially once Lattimore steps in. Lattimore and St-Juste will be the outside corners, and then they'll slide Sanderstill in. I mean, he's 5'10" and change, if that. And he's playing on the outside right now. They're taking a former first-round pick and Noah Igbenogany, and he's the starting nickel corner right now. So I think when you look at this group, the big thing, you talk about how much has changed for them from the beginning of the season to now. They really shuffled that group up. I mean, they were playing Emmanuel Forbes early in the season. He's played 8 snaps in the last 5 weeks. He essentially is a non-factor. They were trying to cycle in a couple different corners. Michael Davis, they were trying to play him. It really wasn't until they said, you know what, we're going to take Sanderstill. We're going to put him outside. We're going to bring in Igbenogany, who was with Dan Quinn last year in Dallas as a reserve. They've said, you know what, we'll bring him in as a flyer, and now he's been their nickel corner, and he's given them some good reps. And so that's their trio there at corner. The biggest thing really is it's very, very similar to the Eagles. They have the 3rd highest pressure rate since week 5 after posting the 6th lowest pressure rate in weeks 1 through 4. And in that span, it's been a huge jump in blitz rate over that span. When you look at Dan Quinn in Dallas, basically the idea was they're going to play a lot of light bodies in the field, heavy sub package. They're going to blitz a ton, and they're going to play a ton of man coverage. And early on in the season, as they were kind of figuring out their personnel, I talked about the rotation at corner and what they were trying to do there. They were playing a lot of zone. They were playing a lot more cover 2. And then they said, all right, we're going to blitz more. Here's what our corner trio is going to be, and we're going to play more man-to-man coverage. So they're embracing that identity a little bit more there on the back end.
Well, we thank everybody who is watching on TV But you better get over to allphly.com because we are like halfway through. We got a long way to go.
Inside the Eagles locker room, and even from Jalen Hurts, a lot of compliments were going toward the linebackers in particular. What Bobby Wagner has brought that defense. And Sam Fortier from the Washington Post actually had a piece that is right up Bo's alley. Bo would have enjoyed it. He this is a compliment.
We'll see how I take it.
Okay, he talked about the biggest jersey achievement gap by number in like NFL history. Basically, 54 on the Commanders last year was a struggling long snapper, and now it's Bobby Wagner. So he looked at historically like the biggest jump from one number to someone else who wore that number. Whether
that's pretty good actually.
Yeah, so it was actually an
I was getting ready to not like it.
Yeah,
that was pretty good. I like that.
It's a creative piece. It was one that you did. So shout out to Sam there. But I bring that up because Bobby Wagner has really stabilized that group in a way. Now stabilized in relative terms because they haven't been a great defense. But what he's brought a level of toughness, intensity, and just like wherewithal in there that I think has been beneficial. Because when I've asked people about that group, they say there's not a lot of talent there, but like they know what they're doing. They don't, the mistakes are more personnel related than like these guys don't know where to be.
They play really hard. It's a tenacious group.
That's probably a better way to frame it.
The only team with multiple off-ball backers with 10-plus pressures. So you look at Bobby Wagner, blitzed often. Frankie Louvu has blitzed more than any linebacker in football, and they'll line him up on the edge, and they'll also blitz him from depth. I went back and just watched all of their pressures this morning in preparation for the show, just to kind of get a sense of, all right, what are some of the things they lean into? And, yeah, you'll see some double mug looks and so. But they really, honestly, they line up in just like a 4-2 nickel, and they'll just blitz one of those guys, from depth. It's not anything too creative. Now, with what the Eagles faced this past week and having some trouble against some of those double A gap looks, it wouldn't shock me if Dan Quinn used some of that in this game with both Louvu and Wagner on over top of the center, just to see like how are they going to react. But that would be something to watch in this game. But either way, the linebackers are going to be involved in the pass rush.
What are you worried about?
Yeah, if I can just follow up on some of the thing Fran's saying in terms of the scheme and the tactics, I charted some of their game against Pittsburgh and looked at the stats as well. There are a lot of zone on early downs and heavier man on late downs. And Fran was talking about how heavy blitz they are. They're 7th highest in the league in blitz now, and like Fran said, it went up in the last few weeks. Similar on early and late downs, 30% on both, but they do go from a lot of cover 3 and cover 2 on early downs to playing a lot of man on late downs. And that cover 2 is often disguised, half inverted, where the nickel ends up being one of the safeties and things like that. And we saw Dan Quinn do a bunch of that disguised cover 2 stuff when he was in Dallas the last few years, after getting his reputation as like the Seattle cover 3 all the time defensive coordinator. Just so people know, this team ranks 26th in the league in cover 3 usage on dropback. So it is not like your standard Seattle Dan Quinn cover 3 all the time as well. They'll play 2-man. Hopefully we see some 2-buster at some point.
A little buster.
And then a couple of personnel matching things. Eagles have been playing a lot of 12 personnel, most 12 personnel of any team in the league. Against Pittsburgh, they were matching that with big nickel, with Jeremy Chin basically becoming the slot corner. He's one of the starting safeties. He will play the slot corner in those situations. Percy Butler comes on into Chin's role as the boundary safety, and then Quan Martin plays as the field safety. And in terms of matching up with the corners, they play boundary field with the corners. So St. Juste plays to the boundary, and the rookie center still plays to the field. And so if you want to get like A.J. Brown matched up against one of them, it's going to be kind of like it was last year where Forbes was playing. I think he was playing to the boundary last year, right? And A.J. just like destroyed him that one game. So it's not going to be like the Eagles where they play left and right. Now, the defensive line, they do play left and right pretty much. The one guy who plays on both sides really is Dante Fowler. The starters, Armstrong and Farrell, will stay to one side. And so it'll be Armstrong going up against Lane Johnson and Farrell going up against, presumably, Jordan Mailata.
Now they are 27th in EPA per rush allowed, 26th in rush success rate allowed. Are we thinking run the ball, give the ball to Saquon in this game?
You know me. I love Saquon.
I think this is a game where you can. I think this is a game where you probably do want to try and see if you can play some bully ball against this defensive front. I mean, with the amount of nickel that they play, I think when you look at their personnel, they are largely a smaller front. They've got a rookie now, Johnny Newton, who was one of the goats of last week's game against Pittsburgh.
Yeah,
Jumping
Bo
off
liked him
sides.
coming out.
Yeah, I was not. I was a little low on Johnny Newton. I mean, his pressure rate so far.
I love him.
I'm sorry.
Why does he go by Johnny when his actual name is so
Jerzon.
cool?
Yeah.
It's awesome.
He's got a brother coming into next year's draft too. Plays wide receiver at Toledo, so we'll have another one.
Man, if my name was Jerzon with like an apostrophe,
Yeah,
I
you
would
can do
not
that.
go by Johnny.
Well,
but-
yeah. So, but either way, Newton is a guy that I think he could move. I'm a big Deron Payne guy. I think that he's the highest upside of any of their defensive players. Still kind of feeling his way. I think I don't think he's having a great year, but I think traits wise, it's certainly there. Double teams have been getting the best of him really for the last couple of years, and I think that's an area where the Eagles can certainly lean into this defense. Is just kind of just pushing them off the ball, vertical displacement. Those double teams I think will really work in their favor. Just looking at a lot of their explosive runs that they've allowed, they've really struggled against duo this year, and that's been a scheme that we've seen the
Because
Eagles
they're in the
run.
middle of the play texting you, is this duo?
Yeah, right. Is this duo or inside zone? No, but I think when you look at the way that the Eagles can attack this defense, I think going right at them, I think will be a good way to go.
I also think from
Eagles
the
ran no duo last week.
No
after
duo,
running
not
a
one
lot of
snap.
duo in the earlier weeks. I thought that was interesting.
I think from a chess match perspective, the Kellen Moore to Dallas thing last week was a bit overstated. It was more of a narrative than something that would affect the game because it was a different defensive scheme, right? I actually think it's more applicable this week. And what I mean by that is Dan Quinn and Joe Witt Jr. Joe Witt Jr. is the defense coordinator. Dan Quinn is the head coach, and it's his kind of defensive philosophy. They work together with Kellen for a long time.
That's a good point.
Right? They know each other well. So Kellen, in theory, should know the soft, the holes in that defense where they might be vulnerable, and vice versa. Now, this isn't Kellen Moore's scheme. It's a combination. But if there's anyone who would have a sense of Kellen as a play caller, as a schemer, it would be Dan Quinn and Joe Witt Jr. and then vice versa.
That's a good point. Now on the Jalen Hurts front, Zach, what do you make of? We talked about it. Now you speculated that after that the game 2 games ago that maybe it was in part because the cameras were there, but we have continued to see this where Jalen Hurts is now a little bit more willing to like talk ball on
I
the
love
podium.
it.
It's been great.
lately.
Great.
It's like the anti-Doug Peterson, right?
Yeah.
Doug Peterson won't explain it because he probably won't understand it. I don't know what accounts for this, but I mean, maybe I've always thought Jalen, is smart, really knows his stuff. I mean, he's
Of course he is. Yeah.
He studies. He's not out there on a whim, and I think that he's really breaking down what he sees on certain plays. We had a great back and forth with you yesterday about that Grand Calcaterra play. Or not, I shouldn't say about the interception.
The Goedert touchdown.
The Goddard, yeah.
Well, I was curious about, because he said it in the game
Yeah.
after the game that, they had to send that guy free. And so he has to either get rid of the ball or make a play. And he said the hot read there is probably to Gainwell and probably would have been incomplete. So, he took it upon himself to make a play. And this goes up back to the thing that we have talked several times about, like the when you're calling the protections, even if you're wrong, you're right, because you know where the weaknesses are. But I mean, in just the Jalen Hurts experience, what a tool it is that he can just beat that guy and extend the play. It's unbelievable.
I liked his answer to you too, where he's saying you don't want to be thinking about it out there, right? You just have to see it and do it. Like thinking will slow you down. So it's the kind of thing where you know the play, you know the look, and you just got to react based on it. And he also said that he told Gainwell he could be wider on that play as well, right?
I think that was
that
Calcaterra
conflating
on
the
the
two?
interception.
Okay.
Yeah, he said the check down to Kenny would have probably gotten broken up.
Yeah, okay.
But he didn't say anything about where Kenny should be. But
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting that like McLaurin asked him about the interception, and his first instinct was like, "Why are we still talking about this?"
Yeah.
And then even on that play, he gave some amount of insight. Like you were asking him about a touchdown, like that's a little bit,
Right.
But yeah, I thought it was really good that he's been giving those couple of nuggets like here and there.
And those two plays related because, as we talked about earlier this week, the Eagles finally willing to throw the ball from that area of the field.
Yeah, so looking at the Eagles' ranking in overall red zone percentage, they're now up to 10th at 60%, which is above league average. For most of the season, they were in the low 50s and below league average at scoring in the red zone. despite being off the charts, like over 93% at scoring in goal-to-go situations.
Wow.
So, like, they were at one point, they were second in goal-to-go.
Touchdowns in goal-to-go situations?
Touchdowns in goal-to-go situations, like 93% or something. The league average is 72%. So they've been awesome once they get goal-to-go. And not every goal to go is from the 3. You know what I mean? Like, I checked that actually.
They
like,
hope that they
are all their goal to goes from the 1 or whatever, and like a bunch of them actually are. but that's not. They haven't all been. And so it just shows that they've had trouble scoring from between the 10 and the 20, and then we could see that, right? We could see that with our eyes. We did a whole show last year about how the Eagles run the ball way too much in that part of the field. They don't throw it to the end zone. So I thought that was a good point you made last week.
Except against Washington last year when they were guns blazing. Right?
Oh yeah, sure. But I mean, but just it was nice to see those.
I did look up the numbers on just the designed run rate, and this season, so it's a small sample, but in the between the 10 and the 19, they're second in the league in run rate,
right?
Like 62%. Last year they were 12th. The year before that they were 4th. So if you just go all the way the Sirianni era, they're second in the league. So that is Nick's DNA.
If this weren't a short week, I would have actually kind of like redone the study from last year where I controlled for like yards to go and things like that. And it was just crazy how much more they ran it in those situations where they were kind of almost clearly playing to get to the quarterback sneak. So yeah, it's nice to see. And having Goedert back is probably a big part of that as well.
Now, I know that you want to talk about just is Jalen Hurts good or not?
But I said that
I'm
tongue in cheek.
a little bit wary about this because I think that this is maybe just deflection for you to not want to be the guy who hates Saquon Barkley anymore.
Look, this is just ridiculous, and I'm not going to pull a bow.
Now you know what it's like.
I'm not going to pull a bow and claim that Fran hates Jalen Hurts. I don't think he does. Okay, I will say that the show on Monday started with like a X-ray and an MRI of every Jalen Hurts mental mistake. Which is
the request
I think,
from the chat. It was from the listeners.
Listen, you can find a listener who can ask for anything. I mean, Bo's been finding the ones asking for nudity the whole time. So
I mean, it's palpable.
I think that that's what makes Fran so valuable. And plus, he didn't get to be so critical when he worked for the team. I think that stuff is very good, and I love seeing it. I just think sometimes fans will nitpick on that stuff, forgetting about the good. And I know Fran doesn't do that, which is why I'm not gonna say that he hates Jalen Hurts. I know he doesn't. Jalen Hurts is leading the league in success rate since the bye, leading the league in completion percentage over expected by a wide margin overall, has reduced the turnovers significantly.
Don't you think completion percentage over expected is the quality of the receivers?
I think it's a little bit of everything, but it's also understanding like who to trust and who to throw to in certain situations and all of that. I think the run heaviness has helped with the turnovers, but his MO has always been low turnovers, so that's not something that I'm surprised by. He's been a clear threat in the run game. He's looked really good running.
That's absolutely true.
Brilliant move by Sirianni to mention the ankle last Friday. It seemed like Dallas was not paying much attention. He had 46 yards on 3 scrambles and a bunch of scored the touchdown on the bash counter play. They didn't seem to be accounting for him very much. Normally teams will dedicate a scraper or something. They didn't seem to be doing that. Throwing beautiful deep balls every week. Since the beginning of 2022, you can argue about whether quarterbacks are wins or a quarterback stat or not, but people seem to be blaming him for the collapse. So I will say 34-11, people sitting one chair to my right.
For the collapse.
34-11 since the start of 2022. The only quarterback with a better record in that time is Patrick Mahomes, and Patrick Mahomes never had Matt Patricia he had Steve Spagnuolo running the defense on the other side of the ball that whole time. And again, that doesn't mean we shouldn't get upset when he makes a mistake or break it down or anything like that. But I do think that there's a little bit too much, like the what's the problem with Sirianni and Jalen stuff. Sometimes seems to forget that this is the best stretch of winning in the team's entire history.
I mean, they've won as many Super Bowls as they did in every other year except for 2017.
I understand. That's all we're going to count?
No.
The Giants from 07 to 11 were the
better team.
Greatest team?
I'll say literally the same team. The same teams won the Super Bowl during that entire span.
I think that part of the Jalen discussion that you are underselling is not just our opinion from the outside, but the way that they treat him internally. And that is, not even the stuff about like behind the scenes dysfunction last season during the collapse. I don't think that falls on Jalen's shoulders, but that there was a disconnect. But I think there are times when it seems like, and sometimes like the not throwing in the red zone is part of this. Offensively, they feel like their best solution is to treat him with a little bit of kid gloves sometimes.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I think that that's an organizational thing. I mean, they did that with Carson Wentz. Jalen came in saying he likes being coached hard and all this kind of stuff, and it's almost like he's stopped thinking that way because of the way he's been being treated. I don't know if that's on him. I'm obviously not there in the meetings and things like that, but I don't know. I think some of the reason that both Sirianni and Jalen get so much negative attention is
the quarterback and the head coach.
Yes, but they're also both kind of weird guys. Like, they really are. I mean, they're weird in very different ways. But, Jalen doesn't give you anything. He's very private. He doesn't say the things or act in a way that people want the quarterback to act in certain situations, and that's certainly true for Sirianni as well. And I think that that's part of what gets in the way of their image, let's say.
Fran, I'll let you defend yourself against these allegations.
Well, look, at the end of the day, it goes back to, there was the article that I wrote a few weeks ago, and we did the whole episode about like what's going on with Jalen in the past game, and it was separating like Jalen Hurts is a bad quarterback versus Jalen Hurts is not playing well versus Jalen Hurts had a bad game or this is a bad play. Like all of those things are very different, and some just because you say like, all right, hey, he didn't play well in the second quarter in this game, doesn't mean I'm saying like, oh, that he is, and I'm not saying you're saying this, Dana, is obviously I'm talking to the divisive side of the fan base that latches on.
Oh, now they're divisive. When they ask for break down every Jalen Hurts mental mistake, it's like they asked for
I
it.
like the comment in the chat that he's such a fan of your points, Dana, that he's going to apply to Penn State so he can take your class.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
But look, at the end of the day, I mean, this is an offense that is 14th in DVOA. They're 16th in turnover in terms of like the turnover stuff, but their EPA per play, they're 10th in the NFL right now. 15th in EPA per pass, 13th in pass success rate. But then when you go to like the run game and those numbers are all much higher. Like to me, like those aren't like terrible numbers. Obviously, it could be a lot worse. But he's been a little bit up and down this season. I've been one of the biggest defenders of Jalen. Even going back to when he was very inconsistent in college, I've always been a fan of his talent. I think that given this supporting cast and where he's at in his career, I think it's fair to say, like, and he would say, like, yeah, like this is the standard I've set for myself. We've seen him play at such a high level, like, and that's why I get so disappointed when, in my opinion, like the scheme and the situation like lets him down. Is that like we should be doing everything? We as in like an organization should be doing everything to prop him up and make things as successful as possible for him. So when they don't do that, that is disappointing because I think the ability is there that he should be performing as a top 3, top 5 quarterback consistently in this offense.
Well, to your point, I mean this is a little bit simplistic, but break it down into the quarters, right?
Yeah.
The run defense we'll do EPA per dropback and EPA per rush, right? The run defense on the team is 9th. The pass defense is 6th. The rushing offense is 7th. The passing offense is 11th.
Yeah,
11th is good. It's insane given the way that this team is built that the passing offense is the worst of their 4 groups.
And if you do the same exercise with DVOA, it's even more stark. I mean, the passing offense is 17th by DVOA, and that adjusts for opponents. So, and the others are 7th, 11th, and 7th. So, yeah, no, you make a good point, and I agree that the passing offense should be better. Now, some of that is the games without A.J. Brown. Some of that is the fact that for some reason Kellen Moore didn't call a single play action pass over like 2 weeks. Right. I mean, like there have been like some weird things. Yes. I talked about like run outside zone, boot action, 3-level stretch more. Like run it. It works every time. They ran it once last game. And again, he hit the check down, and again, it got 9 yards. You know, like just call that stuff more. It will open up the other things as well. And I know that's some of the stuff that Fran's talking about. And Fran talked a lot about Monday on how much ISO ball there was in this game. I can't ever tell why. Like it's like, what about this defense made you think that this was the way to attack them when you attacked, I don't know, Cleveland with like so many more interesting. Cleveland's not the best example, but they had games with more interesting route combinations the couple of games before that. Why are you just having guys run hitches and seams like this whole game against Dallas? Like,
I don't have the answer to that either. That's what I mean is like there's a lot to be. There were times where I was watching the film on Monday from that game, and I'm getting all right. We got to break down this sack, and I was sitting there like I don't know what Jalen's supposed to do on this play, right? And then you go to the next sack, and you're like, man, that's a bad turn down from Jalen. Well, why didn't he throw? Right? So there's definitely both sides of the coin, and that's what makes it such a difficult thing to talk about.
But I do think to Deniz's point. It is easy to take for granted that he can throw those beautiful passes down the field. Like those are awesome throws. Like, and that he can just make a guy miss and then throw a touchdown pass to Dallas Goedert. Like that stuff matters. I
just want to say regarding the passing game, there's always been this like weird, I shouldn't say weird, just like fascination about like, is AJ Brown, they need to keep AJ Brown happy, and AJ Brown's this like diva wide receiver kind of thing. When AJ Brown would say like DeVonta calls for the ball more than I do, and I
because he doesn't get it enough.
So that's what I was gonna say. I do think
he doesn't get it as much.
I think behind the scenes, one thing to just be cognizant of is DeVonta's involvement. And I bring that up. There was a clip that was on one of those behind the scenes. A mic'd up footages from a few weeks ago when Jalen was saying we need to get DeVonta the ball here, and DeVonta was asked about that, and he said, "Cool, I was preaching the same message. Maybe he said maybe he overheard me telling them, and he just wanted to let them know he was on the same page."
That's very funny.
Okay, and then he said he was asked specifically about like not getting as many touches, and he said, "Yeah, it's tough." Especially as someone who wants the ball and wants to be productive and wants to help the offense succeed. And he said that he can't complain about it, when they have Superman back there running, but he knows he needs to take advantage of the chances he gets. And then Nick didn't like deny that this is something that they need to be cognizant of. And then Nick's made a point, like even in his press conference today, he's like, we really need to recognize DeVonta when he has these great blocks when he's not getting the ball. I think this is something that their antenna's up that like they need to get DeVonta the ball more.
I think you're right. I mean, it's kind of wild. He makes one of the like maybe the best catch I've ever seen to like win them that game, and then it gets like 2 targets the next week.
Yeah.
Now there's game flow stuff involved, but
there are penalties involved there. Yep,
yeah.
Sure.
But it is like for a guy as talented as he is. Now it's a good thing he's already gotten paid, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, of course he wants the ball.
Yeah.
It's wild that he doesn't get it more, but it's also hard to argue that you should take targets away from AJ Brown.
In that same scrum, I think he was asked, like, was it just before you caught that 46-yarder?
Yes.
And he said, like, oh, no, I was asking the whole game.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's also funny because when he's mic'd up, he's often like the cheerleader for run the ball. Like, we got to be running the ball. So,
yeah, he's like Saquon.
Because he knows he sets up the play action shots for him later.
Yeah.
I also don't think, the Eagles get to choose what gets on there. The Eagles probably don't want to put him on there saying, give me the effing ball, right? So.
Sure.
Yeah, just that set up that 46-yarder to Fran's point. The 3 first downs on that drive, the first down was an under center run that got 21 yards. The next first down was an under center run that got 2 yards. And then that 46-yarder was under center play action. And so the way that you can set up that under center play action on first down with earlier first down runs, the Eagles run the ball on first down more than any other team in the league. And yet when they throw the ball on first down, they run play action the 6th fewest of any team in the league. That's within their passes.
Oh, interesting.
And it's not because they're not good at it. They are by far the best at it in the league. Over 70% success rate when they run just play action on first down. The second best team is Tampa Bay, and then the third best team is like all the way down to 60%. So Eagles are by a mile the best first down play action team in the league when they do it, but they do it the 6th least. And when I tweeted this, people were like, well, aren't they good at it because they don't do it very much? Like because they run it so much? And I just want to be clear. This is just among the times they pass it, right? They already pass it less than anyone else. And then when they pass it, they also don't use play action. So that's been frustrating. Like I'm like watching the game live. I'm often like play action now. And it's either like a drop back pass or just another run. Wow. And it's just like, this is the moment for play action. And I actually thought like they should have used play action to get that last first down and put the game away against Jacksonville instead of running it 3 times and kicking a long field goal and leaving it to the defense.
Can I grind this to a screeching halt?
Sure.
You guys okay to settle in for a little bit? I had a Wolfston idea that I tried to do at the locker room yesterday.
Okay.
And this is another way of previewing this matchup, really getting into the weeds of knowing the opponent. The Command R's, right, is who the Eagles are playing. So I was trying to talk to Tanner McKee about Apple commands, like keyboard shortcuts. Command R.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
You guys all work with your laptops a lot. I want to play a little game here. Okay. Where just go around, and then it has to be command and only one letter.
Mm-hmm.
And you can tell me
Has to be a letter?
It has to be a letter.
Okay.
And we'll go until two people have lost. You just name any one and what it does. And Zach, I'll let you go
So
first.
it can't be command and like two other things. It has to
No,
be command
just
and
one. Just the single letter commands. So they're 26.
Zach goes to Apple classes in his free
I
time.
know.
Yeah.
I'm hoping to set him up for
Why
success.
is he going first?
No, I'm trying to think here. Command C for copy.
Okay, nicely done.
Okay.
That was one of the three that Tanner McKee got. It didn't turn out to be a good interview, so it's not going to be published anywhere.
Wait, are we allowed to write down the ones that already happened? I'm not going to.
Yeah,
test
but you're not
things.
allowed to cheat.
I'm not testing anything. I'm just writing down
That's
the ones that have been used.
unbelievable. All right, you go next.
Of all the people to accuse somebody of cheating on this show, Command W will close the window.
Nicely done. I mean, it's not that nicely done. Go ahead, Fran.
Command X is cut.
Okay.
Command V is paste. Right.
Okay. Everybody, you guys are all.
Yeah, I'm trying because I just
Yeah, but
memorize
you
it.
can't use it.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, Deniz.
Z will go back, like undo.
Undo. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Is command R redo?
Ooh, I think.
It's not redo. No.
No.
Like it can refresh the page.
Yeah, I'm out.
I mean, that's just wrong.
Guy doesn't know that
There's another one that's redo, and it's not R.
Yeah, I know. He doesn't know the opponent well enough. He has not studied. You are eliminated.
Yeah, I mean the only other one I know would be Command Shift 4, but that's
Right,
not.
yeah.
That's
Come on, you
screenshot.
know more than
Screenshot.
that, Zach.
I'm trying to.
I
I
mean,
do.
think about it in
For letters.
documents
I'm trying to
when
think.
you're writing.
Command V. I do.
Already done V.
Yeah,
Man,
that's
you
what I'm
guys,
saying.
This is tough.
Yeah. This is what you're doing in the locker room yesterday.
What is Command A?
Command A. What's Command A?
Come on, select all. You've lost. Dana's winning.
Yeah, no, I
Okay,
usually do edit
Yeah,
select
I can
all.
do a bunch more. U
Okay.
is underlined.
Yeah.
I is italic.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, Command I.
Y is redo.
Yes.
Okay.
What else is there?
B.
S is save.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, B
I
is
mean,
bold. We
yeah.
haven't even done that.
Command P is print.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, P is print.
Q.
Oh, quit.
Thank
yeah.
you.
I didn't even know that one. Okay.
You didn't know Command Q?
I don't
No,
quit.
yeah.
I don't quit.
Never quit.
I don't quit. I don't quit is fantastic.
Never command Q. I can see that as
Yeah.
like your
Yeah.
Twitter byline.
Oh my God. No, yeah.
All of his apps.
Yeah,
All of his
command,
apps have
yeah.
never been
Yeah, we're not a
closed.
Command Q family, right?
Zach's
Yeah,
next
yeah.
hat is going to be Command Q with like a red thing through it. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So I
Dennis,
win.
Congratulations, you won.
All right.
There's also E for eject, F for find. It's all good
Oh,
stuff.
fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Replace.
Yep. There's one for all of them. Tanner McKee, I mean, you barely beat Tanner McKee. Stanford guy. All right. Anything else on the matchup besides for Command Q? Command R.
No, I've got nothing.
Ready
We
for
should just
Swooper?
say
You certainly did grind that to a halt.
I
will
told
say.
you.
Marshawn Lattimore's out. That we
Yep.
mentioned that.
We talked about that.
Yeah.
Their kicker is out as well, so it's going to be Gonzalez again as the kicker. in
Mr.
case it
Gonzalez?
doesn't matter.
No, Zane.
Oh.
Zane.
Mr. Gonzalez.
Yeah. No, I think you. I think we've covered this. We should also mention too. I know we're more of like a film numbers show, but from a narrative perspective, Zach Ertz is returning to Philadelphia here.
Now, you and I have a show tomorrow at 2 o'clock.
Okay,
we,
yeah.
We
so
get a little more
we
into
can
Ertz.
talk about that. Yeah.
Too much Ertz tomorrow.
Yeah, Dallas Goedert said that, and by the way, I don't think like Goedert and Ertz had like the closest relationship.
Right.
So these aren't guys who like talk all
Goddard
the,
was
all the
just
time.
like, when are you going to leave?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think that is
Ertz
what,
from last year.
But Goddard
That was
asked
their
what type of-
relationship. Like, you're still here.
Exactly. I literally think that's what it was. And I also think I asked Nick this today. Like one of Nick's early challenges was navigating the Ertz situation because that was a weird situation that year. But Goddard was asked about what he thinks the reception is going to be, and he said he thinks people are going to be cheering. There's only he's like there's not a lot of guys in franchise history who have caught a game-winning touchdown in the Super Bowl, right? So
Yeah. Why wouldn't they cheer him?
Yeah.
All right. Let's get to Swooper. A Boffo performance from Zach last week. He hit
Not kidding.
5 out of the 6 things that he had. The Eagles rushed for more
4
yards.
and a half things. He had a half item somehow.
Eagles rushed for more yards. No, it was still a full item. It was only worth a half point. The Eagles rushed for more yards than the total yardage of Brandon Aubrey's made field goals. You hit that. Jalen Hunt plays at least one defensive snap in the first 3 quarters. You hit that. The Eagles defense plays at least one snap in dime, and Avonte Maddox does not play any defensive snaps in the game. Did not work. A player is tackled on the star, or a field goal is made from the star, or there's a fight on the star. Not only did this happen very early on, and shout out to Julia for shouting it out in real time.
In-game, yeah.
The film then showed that Jalen Carter puked on the star.
I think that would have counted.
And
yeah.
that definitely would have
counted.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like Dave Spadero's biggest dream.
There you go. Zach also had the silence of the Lambs. CD Lamb catches fewer than 71% of his targets. That hit. And then, of course, the Eagles win the game. You got a half point for that. 4.5 points for Zach. That puts you to 1.83 on the season. Trailing me, I'm at 2.83. Last week, I had the Oceans 11. Micah Parsons records 0 sacks. Didn't happen. And the Eagles win the game with garbage time to spare. That happened. I had 1 point. Fran, you had Will Shipley outgains Kenny Gainwell from scrimmage. Didn't happen. The Eagles run at least 6 plays of under center play action. Didn't happen.
They ran 5.
They ran 5. Josh Sweat records at least 1 sack. Didn't
Shipley was
happen.
also 9 yards away from outgaining Gainwell.
The Eagles get a sack off a stunt. Didn't happen. Saquon Barkley reaches 1,000 yards rushing for the season. Just missed that one too. And then you got a half point for the Eagles win the game. But you are winning at 3.33 points, a half point ahead of me, 1.5 points ahead of Zach. If you have somehow made it through 90 minutes of the show and that recap, and you still don't know what Swooper is, God bless you.
Yeah.
The 3 of us are going to nominate items to bid. And if those things come true, we get a point. Whoever gets a point, who the most points each week, wins the week and gets a full point for the week. And it's a season-long game. We all have 24 turkeys to start with. However, not always. Turkeys carry over. So I have 32 turkeys to start with this week, and I will be nominating first. Fran goes second. He has 23 turkeys. Zach has 21. And then we will get to the Deniz items. Is everybody ready?
I have 23. Zach has 21.
Yes.
Got it.
Everybody ready?
And I will be live annotating this in case anyone
Very
was
exciting
curious
to
what
watch.
it looked like.
Yes.
For me
Sorry,
to
I'm
type
looking-
up Swooper. You can,
I'm sorry,
you
I'm
can see
looking
it.
at my computer. I'm looking at my
And
Swooper
Deniz,
notes.
you sent Julia yours.
I did.
Okay. We will begin the bidding. The first item. This is a little tribute to our friend Vinny Curry, who is getting, who's going to retire officially as an Eagle tomorrow night. So I've got a bunch of items here. Zach loves a poo-poo platter. Any player in this game finishes the game with passing yards, rushing yards, or receiving yards ending in 75. Or there is a play in the game of exactly 75 yards. Or at any point during the game on the Amazon broadcast, Vinny Curry is shown. And I will start the bidding at 1.
2.
3.
3.
Now, 75-yard plays are less common this year, right? Or
It's got to be exactly
75.
yeah.
I don't think there's been a year in which those were common.
Well, no, but he's saying if they start on the 25.
Oh, yeah.
That's why, yeah.
Good call, good call.
On the,
Yeah.
the first play from scrimmage.
Yeah.
was-
No,
That's a good one.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I always think of Deshaun Jackson's 75-yard touchdown.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. 3 going once. 3 going twice. Oh, Fran with the Vinny poo-poo platter.
Always enjoy a
3.
poo-poo platter. Yep.
All right. Fran, you're next.
All right. This one's cut and dry, nice and simple. Jalen Hurts scores on a brotherly shove. Jalen Hurts leads the NFL in rush attempts, rushing yards, EPA, and first downs on QB sneaks this season. He has recorded 17 touchdowns off of quarterback sneaks over the last 2 seasons, more touchdowns than any other quarterback, obviously, in the next-gen era.
Or
Now-
as the team calls that play, the Snoopy.
The Snoopy.
Evren put a Kelly Green Eagles shirt that was his when he was 2 years old on his little Snoopy, stuffed
Oh,
Snoopy.
I like that.
And now he says, anytime there's a quarterback sneak, he's
I
like,
love
this
that.
is Snoopy.
I meant to say this was a short week, so I didn't get to work the locker room as much. But listening to
That's relative.
I was listening to this show last Friday. I'm going to try to find out why it's called Snoopy for you.
I'm guessing because of Sneak Snoopy. Like most football things are like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but yeah, I would love it if you asked.
I think we need to clarify here. If they do that little like move over a couple gaps, does that count?
Does he score?
If he scores,
Yeah, it counts.
It's
it's
still
any quarterback sneak.
Any quarterback's yeah.
It's not just the classic shove.
Yeah, if it's a fake play where it's like they run like a sweep play where he like runs outside, that is not the sneak.
But if it's like the one from I forget,
he
I
runs
forget
behind
which
the
game it was,
guard.
where he
Yeah,
runs behind the
I
tackle
think that
instead
if he
of-
counts.
just
that
goes
counts.
over Mailata, that's still
That
sneak.
counts. Yes,
Yeah, yeah.
that counts.
Okay.
I can be the judge if you want.
Yeah.
I don't think we want that. I'll be the judge. I'll go 4.
Definitely fair to
Okay.
make one of the players
5.
the judge.
I know. If they get, it's not just they have to get to the 1 yard line. They have to get to like the 8 yard line, and then they're going to just set it up for that.
It's one you should definitely bid on. Yeah.
You at 5 or you're at 6?
I'm at 5.
I'll go 6.
Yeah,
6 going once. 6 going twice.
7.
7 going once.
You're not bidding more on this, Bo?
7 going twice. Sold to Fran.
People in the chat are saying I didn't know the Eagles called it Snoopy. So Dallas Goedert, Slay, and Lane Johnson have all publicly referred to it as the Snoopy. That's how I know. I mean, but looking forward to Zach's reporting on it.
All right, Zach, your submission.
So this one here, Jalen Hurts has more rushing yards than Jayden Daniels. And I will start the bidding at 1. And this is based off of the fact that Jayden Daniels has not had as many rushing yards the past 2 weeks as we've documented.
3.
And this doesn't have to be design run. It
No, it's
includes
just-
scrambles.
it's just rushing yards.
Rushing
Yeah,
yards
yeah,
in the
yeah.
game.
4.
5.
Jalen Hurts is going to be hurt by the 3 knees he takes at the end.
Mm-hmm. And that broken ankle.
And that brotherly shove touchdown.
Well, he'll be helped by that. 5 going once. 5 going twice. Sold to the handsome man in the middle.
Deniz.
All right, Deniz, it's over to you.
All right. Well, since I am here live today, there will be no normal auctions.
Shoot.
That's fun.
Every single one of my auctions is going to be some sort of dynamic live thing.
Oh.
And I'm happy to be the auctioneer, Julia, so you can have today off. The first,
For the record, I have 27 turkeys. Fran has 13. Zach has 21.
the first item is going to be an old Swooper favorite, the increasing bid top 2 pay auction. So someone will start the bid at 1, and then you have to go up in increments of 1. The last 2 people to have bid will both have to pay what they last said, but only the last remaining bidder will get the item. And the item is the Eagles score a touchdown on their first offensive drive, keeping in mind that this has not yet happened all year.
1. I understand this correctly,
1
right?
going once. One going twice.
Wait, is there something here I don't understand?
You end up having to pay 100 times what you bid.
No. You
Wait, how much?
the last
I
so
thought these
if-
last
if-
2
if
people
no-
have bid.
the
Yeah.
last 2 people who bid
Yeah.
both pay,
Yeah,
and
so-
only the
so-
last person to bid wins.
Yeah, so this
So right
means
now,
that-
if no one else bids, you're going to get it for 1.
yeah. And if someone else bids 2, well, someone
And then
could-
no one else bids
yeah.
after that, you pay 1 and you get nothing.
Okay.
Okay. Going once? Going twice? You guys are going to let him have it for 1?
I think we're at sold.
Sold
Okay.
to Zach for 1 turkey. Wow.
I think I did that well. Did I do that well?
I mean, you ended up doing great
Yeah,
because
okay.
they're such cowards. Yeah.
yeah, I was.
The Eagles have recorded a league low 26.8% success rate on opening drives this season, lowest rate by an offense in any season since 2019.
Oh, continue to be the worst offense in the league on the first 2 drives by a mile. Yeah.
Yeah, I was afraid of. I never want to be in a situation where I'm paying for something I don't have. So I thought once I said 1, then I am no longer in this game. So I was.
You were willing to lose 1 for nothing, but
Well, no, I just thought both of them would be bidding each other.
They would
And so
just
I
keep
would be
going
the
up.
third one, and then I'd be So I was.
No, I think
No, it's
you
a
did.
fine bid.
I think
It's
you
fine
did
bid
great
for 1. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just-
Okay.
yep.
All right.
All right. Mine. Relative to our discussion of the high red zone earlier, Jalen Hurts throws a pass into the end zone from 10 to 19 yards away during this game. And I will start the bidding at 2.
Well, okay. Throws a pass into the end zone.
Yes.
Okay. 2.
I already started with 2.
Oh,
From
sorry.
how many to how many yards?
10 to 19.
3.
Now, hold
The
on.
ball has to
The
go into
line
the
of
end
scrimmage,
zone.
line of scrimmage
the line
is
of
10 to 19
scrimmage is
yards
the 10
away.
to the 19.
Yeah.
Right, but the ball has to end up in the end zone, whether it's caught or not.
Yes.
Okay.
Can it be out of the end zone?
Good question.
No, a
Like-
throwaway does not count.
What about if it's through the end zone?
Yeah, like if he
Through the back-
overthrows
through
someone
the
in the
end
back of the end zone.
Does it have to just have an official target, or is it like
Yeah, I think if there's a target. I think
Okay,
it counts
yeah.
if there's a target.
throws a pass?
So like someone's out of bounds, yeah. Or-
To
yeah.
a
Or
target.
He overthrows someone, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So
Okay.
if the game book says it's to a player, then it counts.
Yes. And that player is in the end zone.
Right. Got it.
Okay. You have 3?
No, I have 3.
Oh, you have
yeah.
3. I'll say 4.
Yeah. I'll say 5.
Mm. Yeah. 5 going once. 5 going twice. Sold to Fran. All right. Here's.
All right, let's go to my next one here, and that's the we talked about the reunion here of Zach Ertz.
Mm.
So let's talk about a matchup between 2 Super Bowl heroes. Zach
Nice.
Ertz will be tasked with blocking Brandon Graham on an offensive play. Chip blocks will count, but if he is asked to block Brandon Graham on a play, then it will hit. We will start.
If he just gives
They-
him a little elbow.
They did run split zone
Yep.
with Zach Ertz
Yep,
blocking at least once last week.
yep. They run all kinds of stuff when the tight ends are involved.
And he's just as good at it as he used to be.
Yep. We will start the bidding at 3.
3.
Does he have to make contact? Because he
Uh,
often doesn't when he's the split
Right.
zone.
No, that's why I said he is tasked with blocking Brandon Graham. So if
Okay,
he
so
tries to
even if
block
he
him and he
whiffs-
misses,
okay.
then- yep.
4.
I'll go 5.
Man. Fran, you're doing very nasty work. You're doing a good job.
And now you're just gassing me up for no reason. I don't like it.
I still can't get over the cowardice on mine.
5 going once. 5 going twice. Sold.
I'll take it.
Okay, mine here.
That's me. Yeah.
Mine here is also a Zach Ertz item. And this is Zach Ertz has more receiving yards than Dallas Goedert.
Oh, good one.
Some context here. Zach Ertz is averaging 38.1 yards per game. Dallas Goedert's averaging 54.3 yards per game. Some further context here is that the Eagles quietly are among the best in the NFL against tight ends. They're the only team in the NFL that has not allowed a tight end to catch a touchdown pass, even though they played against Kyle Pitts. Okay, and that that they're among the top 4 in they've allowed the 4th fewest yards to tight ends, and they have allowed the 6th fewest receptions to tight ends this season.
Also, just regarding this matchup too, when we brought up, I forget who brought it up, Jeremy Chin, and Zach looked like he swallowed 3 blue chews.
No.
Jeremy, the one thing he does pretty well is defend the tight end one-on-one and man-to-man coverage. But in any other facet of his game, I think you can go after him, and so that
He does more than one thing pretty well. But okay, but that is something he does well
in the construct
Yes.
of that defense.
Yes.
What he does well. Yes.
And then also Zach Ertz has already been announced a captain for this week's game.
Even before garbage time last week, Dallas Goedert was not getting his regular share of the snaps. So 2 questions for you guys. Do you think that's going to be different this week? And also, do you think the Eagles will dress a third tight end?
Yes, I think Jack Stoll's going to be back.
You think he'll be back and elevated?
Yeah, I think
for the
he'll
game.
clear waivers today, and they'll sign him,
Right.
and then they'll elevate him to practice squad.
Okay.
Or they'll elevate him to
If
practice
not,
squad.
Those-
if not, Uzama will be.
Uzama, well, yeah.
For those of us who print tedious depth charts and take them to the game, the annoying rule on this is that teams do not have to announce their moves until 4 p.m. tomorrow.
Mhm. There you go.
So I start the bidding. I'll start the bidding at 1.
3.
Ooh. 4.
5.
I thought I was going to get it for 4. I got 20 turkeys left. Sorry.
You've spent 1 turkey so far.
5 going once. 5 going twice.
6.
Dallas
Goedert has an ankle injury. It's not going to keep him out. I spoke to him yesterday. He said he's fine. He said 100% injury rate in the NFL. He says if you're not hurt in this game, he doesn't think you're playing it the right way.
Speaking of injuries, Zach, you doubted the Bryce Huff injury, and now his Vic Fangio said he doesn't have a thumb anymore.
Yeah.
And his fingers
He's got 4 fingers
are dangling off of his wrist.
Yeah.
I mean, he doesn't have a palm. He
I'll
said.
say this:
I don't even understand what that means.
If he's okay to play on the 3rd down on the 4th drive of the game, he's okay to play on the 3rd down on the 1st drive of the game. Okay, so
Wow. Probably P's sitting down too. 6 going once. 6 going twice. Sold. Damn.
CB.
Sorry, who got that one?
I did.
Zach did.
It's weird when you can't rewind.
How many do you have left, Bo?
I have 27.
That's what I
left.
thought. I was going to make sure my number was
Yeah,
right.
I'm
Okay.
getting pounded here.
14 left for Zach, 27 for Bo, and 10 left for Fran.
No, 3 left for Fran.
Wait, what?
3.
10, 17, 20.
Again,
Oh, yeah,
trying to
3 left
cheat.
for Fran. Sorry.
All right.
I tried, Fran. Sorry.
It's okay.
By the way, the Commanders, the injury report is officially out. Nick Ballore, Marshawn Lattimore, Austin Siebert are all out. Brandon Coleman, Cornelius Lucas, Andrew Wiley are all questionable.
Okay.
All right. So, little different rules on this one. This is a fixed price auction with increasing item value. So, rather than the price changing, the item is going to change as we go. It is going to cost 8 turkeys,
Oh, okay.
no matter who wins it.
Quick carry over.
And what's going? Yeah, you can borrow from next week to bid on mine. And the item is the Eagles hold the Commanders to X points or less scored in the game. So I'll begin at 0 points, and I will keep going up until someone yells
this is
Swooper.
fun. Nice.
The item is going to become more valuable as I go up, obviously, because it's that many points or less. And so whoever yells Swooper first will get the item for 8 turkeys.
Okay.
Okay, it's going to be 8 turkeys no matter what, but the number of points depends on when you yell Swooper. All right, I will
this
begin.
is a good one.
I will
This is
begin at 0 points. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22.
Swooper.
Okay, Zach gets it at 22 points.
Zach, I was going to do 23. So good
Wow.
job.
All right.
So 22 points.
22 points or less. Yep. And it's 8 turkeys.
Oh, wait, it's inclusive.
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know why I did 21 then. I thought it was
22
fewer
or
than
fewer. You
I
got
thought
22.
so. I did.
Oh, but in this day and age of 2-point conversions and
True.
everything, yeah.
Okay.
All
So
right.
22 points or less scored in the game.
All right.
Good one, Deniz. That was a fun one.
My last item is item number 12 will be the Eagles win the game.
That's a good one.
And I will start the bidding at 3.
I can't bid.
3 going once.
4.
5.
Zach, don't let him get it.
6.
7.
Okay, thank you.
I should have bid 6.
Yeah.
I wasted a turkey. All right.
Good job, Zach.
You should have let me have it at 6 because then you would have gotten these next 2
Wait,
items
what happened,
for
Bo?
3.
You got it for 7?
Yeah.
I would rather have that one than the points one. But
All right, so my last item. I was worried that you were going to step on my toes with this one, your first one, Bo. This is a Vinny. I won't call it a poo-poo platter. We'll call it a woo-woo platter.
Nice. I almost did the exact same Driscoll one.
All right, so one of Vinny's former teammates, Josh Sweat, Brandon Graham, Bryce Huff, Darius Slay, Avonte Maddox, get a sack in this game.
Half sack count?
Half sack counts.
Okay.
Jack Driscoll, who wears number 75.
This is Rick Lovato erasure. I mean, like, you can get a sack.
Jack Driscoll, who wears number 75, plays at least one offensive snap. Or a player does a wrestling-inspired celebration.
Ooh.
Vinny is the final judge on the celebration. We'll ask Vinny in the postgame.
Okay, I need to.
We will start
later.
the bidding at 2.
3. 3 going once. 3 going twice. Sold.
2
to me.
Okay, sorry. Very bad at following.
Wow, 2 separate Vinny woo-woo platters. That's great.
and what was a wrestling term?
Ric Flair, he does the woo.
Yeah. All right, I know Vinny does that. I didn't know it was okay.
Ric
Okay.
Flair.
All right, Zach.
So we've gone an hour and 50 minutes today, and we haven't spoken about the Jahan Dotson revenge game, right?
Yes.
Think about this.
Nicely done.
You might recall Jalen Hurts said that if it happens the third time, it's precedent. So let's
on players having big games against their former teams.
Exactly. So this one here is Jahan Dotson sets a season high in receiving yards.
Good one.
So he needs greater than 37 yards. So 37.
So if he just ties it, it's not.
Yeah, if he just ties it, it doesn't hit. So he needs greater than 37, not equal to or greater.
The Washington writers are like just glazing about this trade and about the lack of production from Dotson. I know, but that is a huge talking point.
Yeah, they're like they basically traded Jahan Dotson for Marshawn Lattimore, right? That's like the spin there.
Yeah. And Noah Brown.
Yeah. And we're gonna start the betting at 3.
4.
5.
I'll take it for 6.
Oh, I should have done 6. My bad. Okay. Yeah, well, there's still
37.
He needs greater than 37. Yeah, that's a good one for you. I wish I had
don't
more
know that
turkeys.
it is,
I wish I had more turkeys. I planned on bidding on that one.
I mean, Jalen's answer to your question about that, Zach, was not exactly encouraging for this item.
How dare you? It was Zangaro.
You just said,
that was Zangaro.
We'll see.
Yeah.
Oh, it was Zangaro. Sorry.
Yeah. Same height. We got confused a lot.
No,
He's actually a little bit
I would
taller.
never confuse you
He
two,
gets a little
but
bit
for some
taller.
reason, the fact that you refer to it now messed me up. Okay.
I wish I had gone more on an earlier one than that one, but okay. All right, here we go.
Last one.
All right, the last one, and this is also going to reveal whether Bo gets
a point now.
Do you want me? I'll just read it, Julia. Don't put it up yet. Don't put it up. The item is the Eagles win the game by double digits.
Oh, so does that count?
No, it doesn't count.
Oh, okay.
It doesn't count. I don't get that.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And then this is going to be a reverse Dutch auction where you're going to say swooper out. So it's the one where I count
I
up.
remember this.
And then you say swooper out when you're out. Whoever doesn't say swooper out gets the item and pays whatever the last number I said is. You guys remember the rules on this? Okay.
Right.
So if you don't want it, at any point you can yell swooper out. Eagles win the game by double digits. Going for 1, 2, 3, 4.
Wait.
5. You can borrow. You can borrow from next week.
And so if you say swooper out,
You're out.
You're out.
You're out. Okay.
5, 6, 7.
Swooper out.
Swooper out.
Okay, so Fran, you get it for 7.
Deal.
I wish I had.
I think there is a path to the Eagles blowing them out in this game.
I agree.
I do think there's a path to that happening. I don't think it's definitely going to happen. But I think there's a path to it.
What is that path?
I think with the Eagles' run game going up against that defense, I think their offense potentially not having the teeth that it did a few weeks ago. I mean, this Eagles defense is playing at a really high level.
If they blow this team out, it's like
it's the hype trains at
all
full
systems
speed.
go.
Yes,
It's
100%.
collision course with the Lions for the one season.
Correct. Yes. If they win this game going away, the hype train's going to be real.
As it should be.
Right. No question.
Absolutely.
Yeah. No
Deservedly
question.
so.
As it should be. And you know, one of the things that I've kind of been going back and forth with people about this week is that, like, this team is 7-2 for the third year in a row. And like 7-2 or better for the third year in a row. And sometimes I think you can get desensitized to that and just start to expect it. And I mean, to put that in perspective, I mean, Nick Sirianni is the first Eagles head coach to start 3 different seasons, 7-2 or better, period. Like he did it 3 years in a row, but I'm not even talking about that. It's just like period. Greasy Neal did it twice. Dig for Meal did it twice. And that was it.
Pretty big Greasy Neal month on the show.
Yeah, Greasy Neal. I mean,
Greasy
well, that's
But
who we're
he
gonna.
brought his kids to the press conference, so like, come on.
Andy Reid started 7-2.
That is so disingenuous.
one time in 14 years here. I mean, so it's just something to remember. If the Eagles win this game, they'll be 8-2 for the 10th time, 8-2 or better for the 10th time ever. That's going back to 1933, and 3 of them will have been the last 3 years. So it's an era of like just winning that's unlike any we've seen, and it's easy to sometimes to get desensitized to it and brace yourself for the collapse or you know things like that. And like Matt Patricia's not in the building. We have done
such a good job keeping this show long that we have made it all the way to the breaking news that the Eagles have officially activated Jordan Mailata from injured reserve. He will play tomorrow night. Nice job, everybody.
Terrific. And now it's a good thing I didn't post that notebook that I've been working on all day, because now I can actually update the...
Beautiful.
Yeah, because if I had posted a few hours ago and then... So this is actually... This worked out well.
Let me... A couple things to clean up before we end. Let me very quickly give you the full Swooper rundown. Fran in pole position. He has used He's borrowed 4 turkeys from next week, but he has 5 items. He has my initial Vinny Curry poo-poo platter, which is things ending in 75 or a 75-yard play or Vinny being shown on the broadcast. You have Jalen Hurts scores on a tush push. Jalen Hurts throws the ball into the end zone from the line of scrimmage between the 10 and the 19-yard line. Zach Ertz is charged with blocking Brandon Graham on a play, and the Eagles win the game by double digits. Zach has the Eagles score a touchdown on the opening drive. Zach Ertz has more receiving yards than Dallas Goedert, and the Commanders score 22 or fewer points on offense, and you have 6 turkeys left over. I have Jalen Hurts runs for more yards than Jayden Daniels. The item 12 is the Eagles win the game. Big garbanzo beans there. And I have Fran's Vinny woo-woo platter, which is one of his former teammates has at least a half of a sack, or Jack Driscoll plays a snap on offense, or somebody does a wrestling celebration. And Jahan Dotson has a season high in receiving yards of 37 or more, and I have 11 turkeys left over. We have some super chats. Nicholas would like a quick recap of Windowgate from yesterday's show, which was a very funny episode. Now, Zach, are you familiar that there are big windows in this room?
Yes, I'm familiar. So familiar there are big windows. A few notes here, okay? This is not I work in the media house, media center at the Eagles facility, okay? But where I do the show is a separate room. It's a studio. I don't typically, I go there if I need to if I'm taking a phone call or if I'm going on a podcast, okay? But it's not my room to control. I don't like touch the thermostat. I don't touch anything in there. I sit there. That's why the backdrop is what it is I think it's actually a network's room to use. Typically, the windows there is closed. So I don't mess with it. I know I did notice last week it was open. But
by the way, this is the far one, not the middle one, right?
There's 2.
Right.
Yeah.
You're talking about the one that's against the building.
Yes.
In the corner of the building.
Yes, not the one that has the monitor in it.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is the room where Sheila and I used to do our Birds with Friends recordings early on.
What show?
Exactly.
Yeah, Birds with Friends.
And so I don't typically mess with what's in there. And so I didn't it didn't occur to me that you would open or close the
having been in
shades.
there as much as you have.
Yeah.
I can understand not ever having lifted up the curtains for the natural light. That seems reasonable. It's not your room. You're right. But to not even know that there was a window in there does strike me as bizarre.
Yeah, I was probably overstating. I mean, if it wasn't like, oh my gosh, there's a window here. It was like, it was more the window was open. I guess is that it never occurred to me. So it's like blackout shades, right? It never occurred to me.
They're not blackout shades. They're normal shades.
Well, it's not like these shades here.
Well,
He
yeah,
did
they're not
acknowledge that there are
see-through,
windows in this
So
room.
that-
but they're
That's
not
what I'm saying, yes.
blackout shades. There's
That's
something
right,
totally
okay.
different.
Sorry, it's
They're
not,
normal
It's
shades.
not like a hotel blackout shades, but the room is very dark. If I'll put it this way, if you don't put the lights on in the room, I wouldn't be able to do the show.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's a
Do
room.
need light.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, that's not true. If the lights were off in this room, you'd be able to do the show because you would have
Yeah.
light coming.
Yes.
In. Okay. So that's what it was, and I did think it was relevant given how much we were talking about sunlight yesterday to include it in the show at that time. But it's not like I was totally oblivious to that. By the way, the injury report is out. Everyone is eligible to play. DeVonta Smith would have been limited today, but no one has an injury status, so every player's healthy.
We have one other super chat from Andrew. And by the way, the chat has been, from what I've seen, rocking and rolling today. Shout out to everybody who's been in the chat
Always.
today for this episode. Lots of good comments. We appreciate all of you sickos. This is for Deniz. He says, can we get a day in the life for you at home games? You bring your Knox, your binoculars, a moleskin, airspeed indicator, a barometer, hygrometer? What's a hygrometer?
I have no idea. I do not bring one.
2 hours early. We know you bike.
Yes.
This could be this honestly could make for a good piece of content. Would be Chris just following you
Yeah.
for a day.
Do you want me to answer now, or do you want to save it for a quiet day?
Maybe give like one little tidbit of what your day is like.
I do get there as early as possible. I am the first person through the gates when they open them up for warm-ups.
When did that start?
Well, so here's the problem.
A hygrometer
Day
is an
games-
instrument that measures the humidity of air or some other gas.
Day games, they open the inner gates at exactly the moment that they announce inactives. So it's 90 minutes before.
Okay.
Which I find a little bit annoying because I'm checking inactives like as I'm walking. Now, and for the night games, they do it earlier than that. And so you're able to get in there, settle down, watch the kickers kick their field goals and things like that. The players are all out warming up without their jerseys on, which is kind of fun. But, you know, they've all got their headphones and things like that. So I watch that. In terms of things I take my notes, my pens, 3-color pens, all my depth charts and everything, my binoculars, my fancy AM radio so that I can listen to Merrill and Mike on the AM station, which is actually live.
Yeah, no delay.
WIP has the delay to sync with the TV, and so it ends up being something like 2 plays behind. For a
Ooh,
team
that's
like
far behind, yeah.
like Washington that goes no huddle, it can be as much as 3 plays behind. So it's just annoying. And so I have the fancy AM radio. Now that means that I get caught up at security every single game. They have to check the radio, they have to check the binoculars, they have to check the pens, like make me walk back through and all of that. And at this point, I like know the people.
I was gonna say you got to know them.
Yeah. At this point, it's gotten to the point where it's just like they know the routine and whatever. But like I do have to take all that stuff out. So. Yeah, so that gives you a little bit of insight. And yeah, I always bike, so it's easy to get in, easy to park, easy to get out.
I don't know what's so funny here.
I missed it too, but I'm sure I don't want to know.
Bo's cracking himself up. Here.
It's the gif of the security guard just casually giving the away from the wand.
Yeah.
And them
All
doing
right.
that to
I
Deniz.
have
Well,
seen
look-
that one.
Yeah.
At least I think that's what he's
Luckily,
left.
there's no actual pat downs at the link. I just have to keep walking through the machine like over and over again. Oh man,
He's the Nicholas Morrow of security
day.
guards.
My last question, Fran, is I've been wondering this whole
You're literally
episode.
crying out. I didn't think it was that funny.
No, of course not.
all right.
Fran, my question is, did you on purpose match the orange?
Yes,
In
with the shoes.
Yeah, the orange flare on the
I did.
hoodie with the orange shoes.
I was picking which shoes to wear, and I thought, you know what, I'll wear the ones with the orange on them.
That's drippy. I like it. Wow, look at
good.
that.
What did you say?
That's
Said
drippy.
Yeah.
It's drippy. That's my son always says that's drippy.
How do you do, fellow kids?
Yeah.
Oh, that's drippy.
Yeah, my son says that. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I know that this happens a lot where we say we got to make that a drop. I do think we need to make that a drop.
Yeah, or my son's my son talks about people's drip. Yeah.
Yeah, your son's allowed to say it.
All right. I can't say. Okay. So you got drip right now.
How'd your son's flag football end up?
So they made the championship game. They lost in the championship game, but he was real happy. And the next season started the following Friday. So now we're in the next season now, which is indoors.
I'm not going to ask why I'm asking, but did they lose to the Panthers or to another team?
No, they lost to the Commanders.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
they lost to the Commanders.
Okay.
Command R's.
Command R's, yeah. Here.
Command U is underlined.
I would love to give just one plug if I can. If you're still watching this at the 2 hour 4 minute mark.
Mr. Peg over here.
Yeah. In an hour and 55 minutes, I will be at the Doylestown bookstore.
Man.
Doylestown bookshop. I will be speaking. And
To Pat Gallen?
No. I don't think there's a moderator. I think I'm speaking for a half hour, 45 minutes. I'll take your questions thereafter. And then signing books. So excited for that.
Fran, do you have your book yet?
No, not yet.
Just making sure.
Are we allowed to say
making sure
the
I'm
good
not the
news
only
about your
one?
book?
No, not yet.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, congratulations anyway.
Claire in the chat says, my son says everything is sus. And I just want to point out that Claire's son and my son are really close friends. They're in the same school, same grade. They were in the same class last year. And I think they broke them up on purpose this year. And a lot of times, Ren will say something that Emily's never heard him say, and she'll ask, like, where did you hear that? And he'll say that it was Claire's son who taught it to him. So
That's outstanding.
Yeah, it's great. It's a lot of fun. All right.
Good stuff.
Drippy. The show is lit.
Yeah, someone is going to have started listening to this episode who lives in Doylestown, and they're going to start listening at about 4:15, and they're going to make it only to the very end to realize that they could have made it.
By the way, I thought I was gonna have all this time to write. I looked it up. It's gonna take me an hour and 40 minutes to get there. So I'll find a different way. Yeah.
All right. Well, that'll do it for this elongated episode of the PHLY Eagles podcast. I think Vince said he was going to set the over-under for this podcast. I think we probably hit the over. I'm guessing it was about 2 hours. So congratulations to all of us. Thank you, Deniz, for spending your Wednesday with us. Thank you, Fran. Thank you, Zach. Thank you, Julia. Thank you most of all to the sickos in the chat, and of course to everybody listening and watching after the fact. We've still got another show tomorrow before the game at 2:00. That'll be Zach and me. And then, of course, the full game day experience. Kickoff show beforehand with Fran and Jamie. We've got a watch along, so you can watch the game if you are not fortunate enough to ride on Deniz's bike to the game. You can watch the game alongside us here in the studio. And then there's a halftime show. And then there's a post-game show with Jamie, Fran, Vinny Curry, who is being honored tomorrow. What a big game it's going to be for NFC East supremacy. We're going to find out if this Eagles team is for real, if they've got that drip. So thank you for all of you for watching and listening. We will talk to you plenty of times tomorrow. And as always, we love you.
We all silly like the mayor.